Music media throughout history has been very impactful, whether it be MTV broadcasting music videos to millions, or Vevo revamping the music video industry. But over time, a lot of these platforms and media organizations have fallen apart, either because of corporate consolidation or just plain mismanagement. So to understand the downfall of music media, we first have to take a look into MTV. It seems like just yesterday, MTV was the go-to place to consume music videos, other music-related content, and classic TV shows like Cribs, Pimp My Ride, Jersey Shore, and many more. But this has left people with a few questions, such as, why did MTV stop posting music-related content? How come MTV only plays ridiculousness these days? And what happened to the network that we all used to love? Well, to understand this, we have to go back to the inception of MTV. MTV was one of the pioneers of the music video, however, they were not the first. I'm not going to get into the whole history, but apparently the first ever music video was created in 1894 using something called a magic lantern. Throughout the 1900s, especially later into the century, obviously, music videos and black and white documentaries with music became a common occurrence, alongside cartoons with music like silly symphonies and merry melodies. They also had things called talkies, and this whole era was just sounded so goofy looking back at it. Anyways, they started putting music videos on TV, especially after colored TVs came out, and that's where MTV comes in. In 1981, Warner Communications quite literally launched MTV, which is short for music television. The first music video they played was for Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles, which I assume had to have been intentional. They also had something called video jockeys, also known as VJs, who were basically music video DJs. They would play popular music videos 24/7, which entirely changed the landscape of the music industry. Like I said, music videos were fairly rare and weren't really popular at that time. Unlike nowadays, where pretty much every artist has to drop a music video to pair with their song as part of their marketing to make it blow up. Eventually, every single big artist at the time began creating and releasing music videos on MTV. Def Leppard, The Cars, Michael Jackson, U2, Van Halen, Prince, and pretty much everyone else from that era. A lot of people believe that Michael Jackson's videos for songs like Thriller and Beat It are a big reason that MTV grew so much. MTV was a station that you could just throw on and see multiple music videos from tons of big artists, some you might like, some you might dislike, and some artists that you might discover. As MTV continued growing, more and more labels and their artists began to appear on the network. Then in 1984, they hosted the first ever MTV Video Music Awards, now known as the VMAs. Basically, this was just an award show to pick one music video that was the best of the year. At the first ever VMA, Michael Jackson rightfully swept up a bunch of awards for Thriller. Bob Pittman, who was one of the co-founders of MTV, said, "As MTV began to be a success, you then start worrying about what's our franchise. And what we knew was we didn't want other people to be giving out awards for video music and making it sort of a commodity. We wanted video music to be completely synonymous with MTV, so we knew we needed to do an award show." And I think that is the best way to explain early MTV, because music videos at the time were synonymous with this station. They also started rotating different types of music videos throughout the day, like new videos, breakout videos, light, medium, and heavy videos. I'm not quite sure what they meant by light, medium, and heavy. Maybe some of you old folks in the comments can let me know. I'm just kidding, by the way, but I'm guessing it was songs from established artists or small artists or something like that. MTV also started doing artist profiles as well. As the 80s were coming to a close, MTV had launched things like MTV News, where they interviewed artists and covered news predominantly about the music industry. However, they did touch on pop culture things as well. MTV really was the go-to community hub to find new music, listen to songs you already liked, watch some cool videos, keep up with the music world, and learn more about your favorite artists. I mean, they had a ton of great exclusive video interviews back in the day with artists like Tupac, David Bowie, and many more. Old MTV was like if YouTube and all of its cool creative content about music was all condensed into one sort of TV station, and it was also the first of its kind. However, around this time they also began expanding into more pop culture related topics, launching shows like House of Style that was about supermodels, and Remote Control, which was a game show. This was the first time MTV had made any shows about anything not directly related to the music industry. So clearly there was a shift happening, and they were experimenting with other sorts of content. In May of 1992, MTV launched The Real World, which was an unscripted reality show that became one of their biggest shows ever, and they began to see a lot of success outside of just music videos. It was a show about 7 younger people who they put into a house and had them live together, which became very entertaining. MTV is even credited with creating modern reality TV. And by the end of the 90s, MTV had decreased the amount of music videos they were showing by 37%. And it makes sense too if you think about it, because things like reality TV and pop culture related things are a bit more appealing to a slightly wider audience. Sure, music is appealing to everybody, but as soon as people heard songs they didn't like, there was a good chance they would just quit watching. The LA Times even said that MTV's audience was elusive, fickle, and had a lack of loyalty, which made it tricky for MTV to maintain their audience. The president of MTV at the time, Van Toffers, said, "Clearly the novelty of just showing music videos has worn off. It's required us to reinvent ourselves to a contemporary audience." And reinvent themselves is exactly what MTV did in the 2000s. By this point, MTV was huge, reaching over 77 million households in the United States. And they decided to expand out of just music-related content. They began to make adult animated TV shows, such as Beavis and Butthead and Daria, both of which were very popular, along with a handful of other shows. In 1996, they launched a channel called M2, which was entirely dedicated to music, as they were shifting the main network's focus to other things. However, M2 was not very successful. They still were doing music, and even started a show called Total Request Live, where they would play the 10 most requested music videos every day. And eventually it actually became one of MTV's most viewed shows. It was a live show hosted by Carson Daly and was extremely successful, with fans popping out right outside the studio to catch a glimpse of their favorite artists. Total Request Live really was like the last bastion of relevant music content that MTV was putting out, with tons of great collabs, fun ideas, and a bunch of creative music-related television. Around this time, MTV executives even said, "I think in the dead center of the music industry, TRL is certainly maybe the most important thing at the moment for those top 10 artists." Of course, they're a little bit biased, but I'm sure that it was fairly true. This helped MTV for a while when it came to their music-related content and maintaining audience interest. But then they pretty much moved away from music-related stuff in the 2000s, and this was for a few reasons. According to an interview with Los Angeles Times, in the 90s, MTV stumbled and lost its hold on this audience a couple of years ago, but after some self-examination and redirection, the channel was again hitting the bullseye. They were worth $8 billion and were one of the most profitable networks on TV. Them moving from just music videos to reality television and live shows like TRL really catapulted MTV back into mainstream success. And obviously, because that's where the money's at, they wanted to double down on this method. Throughout the 2000s, MTV started putting out shows like A Shot at Love with Tila Tequila, Fear, Jackass, Pimp My Ride, Jersey Shore, and many more. Jersey Shore in particular was one of the most popular shows that they had ever put out. They also had shows like Teen Mom and Catfish that were also super popular. And you can't lie, even when they weren't just doing music content, MTV had a ton of classic and iconic shows on their network. Cribs, Punk'd, Pimp My Ride, Jackass, all of these were iconic for different reasons. To this day, we still got Sunny V2 making videos exposing them for faking some of this stuff. But again, a lot of these didn't have to do with music, which is what MTV was originally about, hence the M in MTV. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, when I was a kid, I thought MTV was literally just a pop culture platform with reality TV shows and things like that. I had no idea that originally it was just entirely a music related network. I was growing up during the MTV Cribs era and all those other shows, and as a kid, I didn't personally associate music itself with MTV as much as I did pop culture. Again though, at the time, this was not a bad thing. It was doing wonders for the network and bringing in entire new audiences. Plus, by this point, YouTube had already been developed and began growing. The internet had taken over, and there really was no point in watching music videos on a TV network. The same way that websites like LimeWire and Napster destroyed the music industry and they were forced to reinvent themselves, YouTube destroyed MTV. Think about it, would you rather watch a station where you can't skip songs that you don't like and you have to watch the videos regardless of what it is, or would you rather just go on the internet or to YouTube and search for record exactly what you want or have the option to skip whenever you want, and basically just have full control. Clearly, the old MTV format was outdated. Even one of the original video jockeys, Alan Hunter, said, once YouTube came to be, it was all over. YouTube was MTV on steroids, minus the VJs. I found a comment from a fan who said, I'm Gen X and grew up on MTV. I stopped watching when they stopped showing music, although I liked early Real World and some of the other shows like Liquid Television, but now I can just watch any music video I want on YouTube. And I know a lot of people say MTV died because they stopped playing music, which is definitely a factor, but had they kept their old format without changing anything, the platform would have died regardless. So MTV adapting to reality shows and programs like Total Request Live was clearly the move, and they were benefiting from it greatly. But then things took a turn for the worse for MTV. On November 16th of 2008, Total Request Live ended, likely because Carson Daly left. And like I said, this was one of MTV's last music-related programs. Just a couple of years later, MTV dropped music television from their logo, clearly signifying that they were pretty much done with music. Like the LA Times said, outside of its annual VMAs Music Video Award show, and with the cancellation of TRL, MTV has long abandoned music as a programming mainstay. For years, all eyes have been on the genre-busting reality shows like The Osbournes, Newlyweds, Jackass, My Super Sweet 16, and The Hills. The following year, in 2011, MTV released the show Ridiculousness, which would alter the course of MTV forever. The show was hosted by Rob Dyrdek, and basically it just showed random funny viral videos off the internet. Ridiculousness was very popular when it first came out, which ended up not being a good thing for MTV, because over the years, as they stopped making other sorts of content and series, it ended up being the only thing that MTV would air. I mean, look at this airing schedule in 2021. It is literally all ridiculousness. I guess you could say that the schedule was ridiculous. I'm not going to say that. That's not funny. However, in 2020, a journalist named John Gonzalez even wrote an entire long-ass article titled, How Did MTV Become the Ridiculousness Network?, in which he covered the extent to which they were milking the show. By the 2010s, MTV was basically reduced to a funny clips TV station that you're forced to watch when nothing else is on at a hotel. It was not going well, and their ratings were falling to an all-time low. At this point, most fans had probably forgotten about MTV, and the younger generation probably had no idea about the impact that MTV once had. They probably just knew MTV for reality TV shows and some mediocre pop culture related TV shows. It wasn't even the fact that they stopped playing music videos, it was the fact that they lost touch with their roots and weren't trying to evolve with the times. Instead, they opted for low-hanging fruit television shows like Ridiculousness and just decided to rerun it constantly. But then, in 2016, a new CEO named Chris McCarthy took over and tried to change things for the better.
The secret is we're leaning back into our strengths. You know, we have an incredible brand with 95% brand awareness. We have one of the largest libraries of youth and music IP in the history of television, and we have a creative culture that is one of the best in terms of storytelling. And we leaned back into that about 2 years ago when I took over, and really turned the ship around rather quickly. We reversed a 5-year rating decline in just 8 months, and today we're actually leading the industry in growth.
Things were going a little bit better than before, but that isn't saying much. In 2017, they brought back Total Request Live in an attempt to go back to their roots, but that too was outdated. After just 2 years, the show ended in 2019. What seemed to be the final nail in the coffin was in 2023 when they laid off 25% of their domestic staff and shut down MTV News, one of the earliest and longest running programs MTV had. The only thing MTV still really has that has some sort of cultural significance is the VMAs, which ironically enough is still music related. Despite the new CEO's efforts, returning to their roots had failed, and MTV is just a shell of what it once was. The network had lasted for many decades, with many different types of cultural impact, from revolutionizing the music industry and music videos to essentially creating reality TV and putting out tons of classic TV shows. MTV did have a very long and successful run. However, they couldn't keep up with the times, they couldn't evolve, and rather than keep coming up with new ideas, they got complacent and just decided to play Ridiculousness over and over and over again. After the fall of MTV and the rise of YouTube, Vevo was the next corporation to take a stab at publishing music videos and making them more available. It seems like just yesterday, every single musician had Vevo in their YouTube channel name, Vevo in the bottom left of their videos, and there were even YouTubers putting Vevo on their diss tracks because it made them look more official. But this has left people with a few questions like, what even is Vevo? Why was their name on every single YouTube video? And And whatever happened to it? Well, it turns out that Vevo was a big scheme cooked up by the music industry that eventually failed. So to understand that, we gotta go back to Vevo's inception. Vevo was created back in 2008, when the music industry was recovering from quite a few problems. See, back in the day, music videos used to be aired on TV, on platforms like MTV, NBC, and more. This way, the producers and artists could get money directly from the networks and their advertisers. But then the internet came in and disrupted everything. CDs and records were being replaced by illegal file sharing services like Napster and LimeWire, because why would you buy something when you can just get it for free? So as you may know, this made the music industry not very profitable. Things like Spotify and iTunes were just coming out, so the industry hadn't really figured out how to make money. That's why they came together and created Vevo. Universal Music Group and Sony Music Entertainment both got together in an evil corporate fashion and created Video Evolution, or Vevo for short. If those names sound familiar, that's because UMG and Sony are two of the big three record labels, which means that these three labels own pretty much every other smaller label. They thought that by creating Vevo, they could find a way to monetize music videos, and they did.
What we're trying to do is quite simple, which is to provide a high quality, premium music and video experience to as many people as possible in as many places as possible. On any television, on any computer, on any phone, on any connected digital platform, we want to provide the highest quality, premium music and video experience. So we do that today with our partner YouTube. So about 70% of music videos worldwide are consumed and discovered and viewed through YouTube. So what Vevo does is provide that experience inside of YouTube with the world's largest music companies.
The issue though was that YouTube was only monetizing like 3% of their videos at the time, while platforms like Hulu had ads on all of their stuff. But YouTube had been working with these record labels and wanted to keep music videos on their platform because that was one of their biggest sources of views. So YouTube and Vevo came to an agreement. Universal, and eventually some of the other labels I mentioned, would put their music videos on YouTube and Vevo would distribute them. Google hosted them on YouTube and Vevo's website as well. Vevo was also in charge of selling ads to advertisers. Most ads on YouTube videos, like the one you're watching right now, are sold programmatically, where advertisers bid on a certain type of customer demographic, like specifically targeting which country they are from or what age group they belong to. This is very common, I'm sure most of you understand that, but Vevo instead would sell specific slots to advertisers, which makes a bit more sense because you can imagine that appearing in front of a Drake video is likely going to get you more attention than throwing your ad on a Matty Balls video, for example. It's kind of like how advertisers kill to be in the Super Bowl. I'm sure they've had quite a few bidding wars over Taylor Swift's music videos. Not because they're good, but because she gets a lot of views. Also on long videos like interviews and things like that, they can sell slots for ads during the video as well. This way Vevo is able to make quite a bit more money from YouTube ads than your everyday YouTuber. So with all of that sorted out, Vevo got like $300 million in investment money, and they were preparing to launch. They acquired some other labels as distribution partners, furthering the music video monopoly, and then they were ready to launch. Vevo launched on December 8th of 2009 with 30,000 videos on their website from huge artists like Eminem, Lil Wayne, Michael Jackson, Lady Gaga, Kesha, Miley Cyrus, and many more. The website actually crashed on launch and in the first month got over 35 million views. Apparently they had already surpassed other websites like AOL Music, MySpace Music, MTV, Warner Music, and more. I was 7 when all of this was going down, so hearing about MySpace Music is new to me and pretty interesting. Regardless, Vevo was going crazy, launching in different markets internationally like European countries, Mexico, and more. They even got the other big 3 record label, Warner, to sign with them as a content distribution partner. And they were also distributing videos on MTV.com, which was a whole lot cooler back then. At this time, Vevo was getting most of its views, 80% to be exact, from YouTube. Because Vevo was a conglomerate of pretty much every big record label and small one, and they distributed these videos to YouTube, that's why every artist had their own Vevo page, like Eminem Vevo or Rihanna Vevo. That's also why pretty much every music video in the early 2010s and even up until this day have Vevo in the bottom left corner, or right, I can't remember. But that still leaves us with one question. What happened to Vevo, and why did I say they failed earlier? Well, they had a problem. Vevo wasn't making that much money as an actual company. most of the money was going to YouTube and then to the record labels, leaving Vevo to pick up the scraps. Apparently, Vevo was also very expensive to run because of everything I mentioned, so pretty early on into the company's life, they tried to find a buyer for $1 billion, which didn't really work out. So Vevo had to come up with some other ways to make money. First, they started making other types of content on YouTube and their own website, like interviews, live stream concerts, and things along those lines, although that content was never super successful. Then they released an app to watch music videos on your phone, and when it first launched, it was actually very successful. By early 2011, they were bigger than Facebook and right behind YouTube for video viewed content. By the end of 2011, Vevo was getting over 3.7 billion views a month, they had over 13 million downloads of their app, and they had made over $150 million in revenue. But like I said, most of this money was going to YouTube and the labels, not to Vevo. And because they didn't want to rely so much on YouTube, they tried to diversify. They created something called Vevo TV that was supposed to be like Hulu, and they were also on apps like Roku, Apple TV, and more. It's likely that they were eventually plotting to become something like Hulu for music videos, where they wanted people to pay a monthly subscription to watch these music videos.
And so we think there's that one of the important things, and you hear this throughout the industry, that the move towards subscription, a more premium product, that's something we're very interested in and very much, working towards.
That's a subscription service, or does the whole thing go behind a paywall? Do I have to pay to watch Katy Perry?
No, we believe in a dual revenue stream.
This was a rumor for a while, but after consumers have had music videos for free for so long, it's very unlikely that would have ever happened. Regardless, for a while, like I just said, their diversification was working, but it didn't last long, because in 2018, everything came crashing down for Vevo. Vevo had a few controversies that really hurt the company, and I'm not talking about the time some executives were ironically caught watching pirated content, or when they were trying to work with Facebook to get people's info for targeted videos. The main issue they had was in 2018, when they found themselves in the crosshairs of some hackers from the group Rmine. First, the hackers got into Vevo's servers and released 3 terabytes of their documents and videos. Then they got hacked again. This time, 2 hackers named Karoy SH and ProSox got into Vevo's YouTube channel. When they got in, they deleted Despacito, which was the most viewed Vevo video on YouTube, and they also renamed a ton of the videos as well, changed some thumbnails, and apparently this was some sort of pro-Palestine protest. I'm not sure how much these hacks really affected Vevo, but it seems like everything started crumbling after this happened. The CEO stepped down, a bunch of important executives left, and they had to lay off dozens of employees. At the same time, Vevo was really struggling to compete with YouTube. It seemed like them putting their content on other websites or making their own website was a way to distance themselves from YouTube, so that way they didn't have to pay all of their revenue to YouTube. But that clearly didn't work, as YouTube is still the #1 site when it comes to watching music videos. Plus, the same year, YouTube just launched YouTube Music, so Vevo never became the Hulu or the Netflix of music videos. Instead, Vevo decided to wave the white flag. Vevo decided to shut down all of their other operations and just merge with YouTube to become a regular distributor. YouTube merged the Vevo accounts with the artist's official accounts to consolidate everything. So if you were subscribed to a Vevo account, your subscription would be switched over to the official artist account. YouTube said, Vevo's reach and business can continue to grow on YouTube as a direct result of simplifying the user experience through consolidation of an entire artist catalog into one channel, where Vevo videos are featured prominently. So basically, like Agario, YouTube just ate up Vevo. This is probably why it feels like you don't see the Vevo branding as much. I mean, we're all probably used to seeing the Vevo logo in videos, so we don't notice it very often, but it is still there. It's just that the channels don't have Vevo in their name anymore. And Vevo is still pretty successful after the merge with YouTube, as they have over 500,000 music videos that get over 26 billion views a month. You can still go to Vevo's website and check out their content and their artists, but it always redirects you to YouTube. They also still host their videos on Pluto TV and Roku, but let's be honest, no one's going there to watch music videos. Like Medium.com said, without assassinating YouTube, there really wasn't enough room for both of them to coexist. The consumer isn't ever going to go to a second location for the same product they can get at the first. So just because it looks like they aren't there, Vevo is still there operating in the shadows. However, their plans to take over the internet as the go-to music video service failed. Like Jordan Fraser said, Vevo isn't dead, it has regressed to the bottom of the video screen. It exists today as branding you'll continue to see on most music videos. It also exists as a reminder that the entire music industry is run by only a few people in expensive suits. But Vevo wasn't the only music media organization to take a stab at utilizing YouTube, as many memorable companies were born in this era, such as NoJumper. NoJumper used to be one of the best podcasts to get connected with your favorite up-and-coming artists in the underground. From interviews with artists like XXXTentacion and Juice WRLD to putting out music videos for up-and-coming artists, they had one of the biggest and best platforms in hip-hop. But fast forward to 2025, and Adam22, the owner of NoJumper, just put out a video claiming that they are going broke.
So there's something that I've been hiding from you guys. NoJumper is going broke.
On April 2nd of 2025, Adam22 posted a video on the NoJumper channel titled NoJumper is Going Broke. He started off by describing how much money he wasted by trying to grow and creating all of these expenses for himself, even though the views were never that great.
We expanded too much during COVID at just about the exact moment that our revenue streams all took a hit. We hired a whole bunch of editors and other employees, and we bought a huge office building that cost us almost $4 million, thinking that the growth that we were experiencing during the pandemic was going to continue. And unfortunately, that did not happen. Our YouTube numbers, which had doubled or even tripled, gradually returned to normal. Our Snapchat and Facebook numbers, which had exploded during COVID, sometimes even hitting 6 figures a month, shrank by about 80% or more. Our Patreon, which was absolutely killing it for a year or two when we were doing uncensored, aka nude interviews with up-and-coming superstars like Kazumi and Sky Bree, fell off quite a bit with the launch of Plug Talk and a decreased interest in seeing us interview stars.
He also wanted to talk about how big of a hit the channel took when all of his hosts were leaving. Adam continued to say that the NoJumper Instagram account was actually taken down, which also seems like a huge cash flow source for them. On top of all this, he also said that they're being sued by a former employee, which is also very expensive for him. Adam said that because of all this, they had to lay off a bunch of their staff. They're trying to sell their multi-million-dollar warehouse that they just moved into like 2 years ago, and they also have to close their store. Regardless, it seemed like this whole video was made basically so that Adam could just get some sympathy and ask fans to support.
But I honestly spent pretty much all of my time trying to create as much content as possible with NoJumper, and I can't really justify doing so unless the fundamentals of the business make sense. It was a big decision to share this stuff with you guys, but at a certain point I realized that I've been honest with the world about just about everything in my life over the years, and it felt wrong to keep all this stuff that we've been dealing with in secret. So I know what you're thinking, what can you do to help? Well, I do have some ideas, which I'll sort into 3 categories here: free, cheap, and generous.
And if you guys look at the like to dislike ratio or see what people are commenting, people aren't being too supportive. But you're probably wondering, why do people not feel bad for Adam22 and NoJumper? Why are their finances so bad? Why did they hire all these people and have to lay them off? And you may even be wondering what happened to the original NoJumper style of content. Well, to best understand that, I think it's important to look at NoJumper's origins. Originally, NoJumper began as a YouTube channel / podcast involved in the BMX community. It was created by Adam22, who owned a BMX store and was very involved. He also had some friends that were underground rappers, such as Xavier Wolf. He decided to interview some of his friends, which got some views, so he continued interviewing more and more underground rappers. Quickly, he started getting guests like Black Cray, Gangsta Boo, Puya, Suicide Boys, and many more. And what made his podcast so appealing at the time was it felt really underground. Not only was he talking to underground artists, but the whole DIY setup and great conversations just made it feel like a really good way to connect to your favorite artists. He interviewed tons of underground artists, was vlogging concerts, and even posting music videos for artists like Lil Peep 10 years ago. He got Yachty, Maxo, Cream, Danny Duncan, Larry June, Andy Milonakis, and tons of others. But probably his most iconic interview, and the one that blew him up the most, was his interview with XXXTentacion, right as he was about to blow up. This interview was an hour and 20-minute insight into the life of a crazy, mysterious, and controversial artist who was exploding onto the scene. After this, Adam was able to lock in with tons of people from Riley Reid to Nadeshot for whatever reason. Honestly, if you can think of anybody who was coming up in the last decade, Adam probably interviewed them. Adam was posting vlogs on NoJumper, and like I said, everything felt very DIY. But over time, he went on to bigger artists, he got a new studio, and upgraded pretty much everything. From like 2015 and 2016 to like 2020, NoJumper was one of the leading, most important media platforms in rap. They helped to break so many artists, posted tons of music videos and behind the scenes for big artists in the game. They were also doing news on other platforms like Instagram, which was probably really helpful for their income. NoJumper also just had a ton of viral moments in their podcast, which helped them to explode.
Wow, Adam, big boy.
There we go.
Right now. You want a dart right now? You want a dart?
Shout out to the homie Boonk.
Oh my.
Bro. Help me with this. Okay.
And don't worry, by the way, Boonk is doing much better now, so you guys don't need to worry about that. However, it seemed like eventually chasing viral moments would be what led to NoJumper's downfall. I think what marks the beginning of the end for NoJumper was episode 1 of the NoJumper show. On July 25th of 2019, they aired the first episode featuring Camgirl and Housephone. Housephone in particular had been really tight with Adam since the beginning of NoJumper. They already had started podcasts on NoJumper, but this was the first one where it seemed like Adam tried to take it seriously. And after this, it really just opened the floodgates for tons of new podcasts, hosts, and guests to come. A Compton rapper by the name of AD got his own podcast. Then Housephone got his own podcast. These guys would either do live shows or just pre-recorded shows, and eventually the more and more they brought their friends on, the NoJumper cast grew a ton. It went from Adam and Housephone and a few others to eventually dozens of people with shows or just regularly occurring appearances on the platform. Two specific additions to the NoJumper cast, Crip Mac as a personality and the Thoughts Next Door podcast, would open up a lot of doors to a lot of problems that NoJumper would eventually face. Regardless though, throughout the 2020s, Adam had tons of people hosting their own shows or collabing on shows like Lush, Flacco, Brick Baby, T-Rel, AD, Sharp, and plenty of others. They also had the NoJumper Sports podcast, which is funny because the host Kiki got a tattoo of the logo just for it to be canceled after 15 episodes. But you may be noticing something. A lot of these names are not familiar. Unless you're super deep into rap or this sort of content, it's likely that you are not familiar with a lot of the people that he was trying to bring on and replace himself with. Old fans of the NoJumper channel likely were not really interested in watching tons of random people talk about random things when originally they subscribed for underground rap content or interviews with rappers or Adam talking to rappers or vlogging and things like that. You guys probably don't even know this, but like 2 years ago, they even invited me to join them on the news, and that I think that just goes to show they're inviting anybody. Like, why would I? Who wants to watch me on NoJumper, right? Nobody. So I don't understand why they just have so many random people on their show. They even had a brief podcast with Long Beach Griffey, who's like a YouTube skit guy, which I just thought that was really random. But regardless, the only way that all of these random hosts were going viral was with controversial moments. Like when his co-host Almighty Suspect got into a fight with one of their guests.
Bro, Ben Franklin knows who I am.
Out of here.
He knows who the f I am. I'm getting money every day. I said Ben Franklin knows who the f I am.
Who you calling a bitch though?
I'm calling you a bitch.
Fights like this and intense arguments between hosts, co-hosts, and guests over time became a common occurrence on the NoJumper platform.
How did you and Kevo get into it to begin with?
He was cloud chasing off
Man,
Kevo.
shut up. I just said let the man talk.
What'd you say, Kevo? Bro, suck my dick, bro. That's a,
Hey, stop playing before I smack you out.
Do it.
Hey, no. Watch out. We ain't doing that here. Watch out.
I'll beat the f out of you. No, man. I'll beat the f out of you. No, man.
Literally, as more and more people began coming on the platform and Adam began hiring all of these people, so many fights broke out. Like I mentioned earlier, it seemed as if NoJumper had just began chasing these viral moments rather than actually setting out to make good content or thought-provoking interviews.
Oh, cuz. Uh-oh. My nigga Bill in this motherfucker, you know what I'm saying? My nigga Bill in this motherfucker, bro. Oh, hold on, bro. Hey, hold on.
I think a fan summed it up best in a comment where they said, "NoJumper was like watching a group of high school kids try to run a podcast." And it's true, it had become like a modern day Worldstar damn near, where the focus of the content was just low-hanging fruit, low IQ entertainment. Like, look at this thumbnail and title, bro. It just looks like some 2015 clickbait YouTube garbage content. NoJumper had began turning into a reality TV show, and fans were not happy. Even Adam would eventually admit that it probably wasn't the best idea to chase virality all of the time on the podcast.
Those viral moments, for the most part, were kind of like destructive to what we were building.
Of course.
And really, like, yeah, it might have been fun in the moment, or it might, like, I'm watching, like, you know, react to like clips from NoJumper at one point, and he's saying like, bro, this looks like a hostile workplace. Like, people are just being too aggressive towards each other, etc. Like, this is not, and I'm kind of watching it like, yeah.
But it wasn't just because of the controversy, the fights, and the randoms that were always hosting NoJumper that caused it to fail. In part, it was the fact that none of them could seem to get along. The many hosts on this platform began to beef with one another, and a lot of that was fueled by the NoJumper subreddit. Believe it or not, it was actually really obvious to fans that a lot of the people at NoJumper were actually reading the subreddit. They were making burners and constantly responding to and arguing with fans. But then the NoJumper host realized something. There was a lot of negative posts about the NoJumper host, except for Adam and his wife, Lena. Adam was a mod of the NoJumper subreddit, and he was actively removing anything negative about him and his wife, but leaving up tons of negative stuff about his co-host, his employees, and some people who he claimed were his friends. My friend 1111 actually interviewed a mod from the old NoJumper subreddit, and he explained that this was actually a huge deal for NoJumper.
Hold on, there's nothing never negative about Adam and his girl. We like, hold on, that's cool, it's fine, but now that we see that they're mods, it's crazy because there's something negative about AD's girl, my girl.
People could be getting dragged to hell, but that could stay up. But anything Adam and Lena related, it could go down in an instant.
As a moderator of the page, Adam had been banning accounts and deleting posts if they were made about him or Lena, but left them up no matter how bad they were about fellow hosts in their personal lives. After seeing this, our mod guy here then started unbanning these users and apologizing, which Adam clearly did not like and led to him being removed as a mod.
The NoJumper people were so involved in the Reddit that some key info got leaked by a host onto the Reddit from a burner account. Then this caused like a whole bunch of drama on the IRL NoJumper podcast. This wasn't just Reddit anymore, this was real life, which is crazy because this whole Reddit incident caused a huge fallout between Lush, Flacco, AD, and Adam. And this was not the only infighting that occurred. Remember how earlier I said House Phone was with Adam from like the beginning of NoJumper? Well, they also had a falling out after Adam interviewed a transgender woman named Gracie Jane. In this podcast, they talked about how she had hooked up with House Phone.
Oh, come on. You've already sold out entire life here.
Yeah, well.
Did that look down upon to expose that somebody may have been with a trans person?
Yeah, absolutely. I sign NDAs and I take them very seriously, so just letting everybody know that. You didn't get one, I'm
guessing?
He didn't me. Fuck him.
Seems like I'm worried about people calling me a bad friend for just not editing this and putting it out. They're going to be mad at me, but I'm just...
He's just going to be... well, how about this? Acting like you didn't do some that you did do, and you know you did.
I've been friends with him for like... And I just don't want to be like...
The truth is the truth.
Apparently House Phone and Adam had talked about it before it went live, and he asked Adam to cut that part. But then Adam claimed that he told his editor to censor everything about House Phone. He did show the text, and he did show the part where he said that he would just wanted it cut, and the editor accidentally left it in. And fans very quickly pieced together who Adam was talking about in this interview. Fans were extremely upset with Adam, commenting things like, "Adam's not a bad friend. He's not a friend at all. He doesn't respect any of his employees. He's just scared of half of them." Another said, "The fact this interview is still up speaks volumes." Eventually, House Phone confronted Adam on the podcast, and things got very serious.
You're talking about, yeah, he's been going through the mom shit. He's been going through the hell. You talking about the person that fucking raised me, that birthed me, my best friend that died? Oh, just he's been going through the mom shit.
But are you actually acting like I have some kind of disrespect for your mom when
You're disrespectful as
I paid for the fucking funeral as soon as it happened just because...
Pussy, nigga. Come on, bro. Not here, bro. Not here. Not here. Pussy, nigga. Not here. Come on. Not here, bro. All right, let me go. Not here, my nigga.
Because of all of the beefs between hosts, Adam, and the fans, half of the NoJumper cast left between like 2022 and 2024. After this incident, the entire subreddit actually turned on Adam because he was deleting every post about the situation. So the fans created a subreddit called NoJumper V2, which was unmoderated, became very popular, and was very critical of Adam and NoJumper. It's really weird, and you'll notice this throughout the video, but it's like NoJumper has a really strong core fan base, but that fan base kind of just hates NoJumper. It's really interesting. Anyways, because of all the issues Adam had with his co-hosts and employees, it eventually led to him getting called out and exposed multiple times for some pretty controversial things. I'm not going to go too deep into this because this could be like a whole hour-long video in and of itself, but basically Adam was allegedly involved in some weird things that were dug up on the internet that involved minors. An old blog post of his was dug up where he said, now any of the math inclined out there are probably reading this and thinking something like, she's 19 now, you were 23 then. How old was she then? Well, she was 16. But come on, man, look at her. She's 18 or 19 in most of the pics here, but she didn't look much different at all then. If statutory rape is wrong, I didn't want to be right. Now I can make the argument that the age of consent is 16 in Canada, although I'm sure that traveling from America to Canada to have sex with a minor is still legal as hell. But really, fucking argument. She was stupid hot and I wanted in. Now, to be fair to Adam, he never said in this post that they hooked up around that time. He said that he actually started dating a different girl. And then after Adam and that girl started dating, by that point, this girl was 19. So then they hooked up, which I think some people would classify as grooming. And I'm not gonna lie, I actually researched an entire video about all of these like weird sexual controversies that Adam22 was involved in, but it was a long time ago and I was just coming off a cease and desist, so I was kind of scared to post this one, to be honest, so I never did. But I have a ton of research on all of this stuff, and there was a bunch more weird things that he got caught up in, like on a super old forum from 2006, when after being asked the age range of girls he's been with, he said, I don't think I've done any 17-year-olds since besides the one last year. Also, I am 22 right now. He also said on this forum, 15's a good age. That last one was probably like a 2006 edgy joke, but still, it's really weird. This is why a lot of people turned on Adam22, and a lot of people even started calling him Adam16. Regardless, because of all of this stuff, a lot of people did not like Adam22, whether they were fans of NoJumper or not. It seemed like the overall hip-hop community as well was not a fan of Adam22, nor his platform, because of how controversial they had become. And that's why I have this theory that a lot of artists are no longer going on NoJumper for interviews, especially bigger ones, because it doesn't look good for their PR teams. On top of all of this, Adam was also dipping his toes into political podcasts, which just isn't ever going to come without controversy, especially when he's having people like Nick Fuentes and Sneeko on. So not only was the entire crew falling apart, but people were beginning to hate the main guy himself, Adam22. And on top of all of that, NoJumper had really began to lose their identity as a platform in general. Over time, hip-hop content stopped becoming the main focus of NoJumper, and they started talking about one of two things. First, they started interviewing a ton of porn stars. If you didn't know, Adam22 started an adult film media thing with his wife Lena called Plug Talk. So porn stuff is something that he's been involved in a lot over the last couple of years. Also, he went mega viral for letting his wife do some solo content with another guy, which has definitely changed fans' opinions on him. A lot of people now view him as a cuck and a sellout and all sorts of things. Regardless, because of their involvement in porn, Adam and his co-host started interviewing a ton of stars on NoJumper. It used to be on occasion, like with really big ones like Riley Reid, for example, but then it started happening more and more often. To this day, fans are still complaining about it because like the first half decade of NoJumper's lifespan was strictly hip-hop content, strictly underground. So when a bunch of the content became porn or OnlyFans related, it really seemed to rub fans the wrong way. But the other thing that caused problems with fans was how deep into gang stuff Adam and the hosts of NoJumper were getting involved in. And this may actually play a hand into why NoJumper is going broke, or at least that he's claiming they are. If you guys, like myself, haven't been tuned into NoJumper except for maybe the occasional interview once a year, or if you're just not very in the loop at all, NoJumper has regularly been having a lot of LA gang members on, and they frequently openly talk about gang-related things, and recently that's come back to bite them. Brick Baby, who I mentioned earlier, and Loose Cannon were recently indicted on a RICO, and both of these guys frequented NoJumper. They were connected to a guy named Big U, who allegedly is like the leader of a gang called the Rollin' 60s Crips. I don't know much about gang stuff, and I'm not going to pretend to, but basically it's a bunch of gang-affiliated people hanging around NoJumper all the time and discussing what they do on the actual show. Whack 100, another guy who is heavily involved in the music industry and is heavily affiliated with NoJumper, is also affiliated with Big U, and there's even a clip of Adam trolling him about it on the podcast.
Back, what's up with this screenshot that Traplo Ross sent me of you begging Big U not to kill you?
That's cap. That's an AI.
It's in the indictment. It's in the indictment that you were saying, don't do this. My wife, my kids in the car. Draws. Don't do this.
That's not a text message.
As someone who hasn't been tapped into NoJumper for years, it's so weird seeing him talk about all this really serious gang stuff rather than just like interviewing people. And I don't think that most fans are really into this sort of content either.
When I see Lovejoy basically putting a murder on Big U and claiming that he's looking for information about it or whatever, this is very confusing to me. Like, how in any way is this acceptable?
There's so much more detail to this, and I'm not really educated on it. It's like a really giant web of stuff. So if you want to learn more, I would check out this video by Point and Shoot. It's really good, and it really captures what's going on right now with the gang stuff. But regardless, if you guys want a more simplified version, there's basically just a ton of gang-related people hanging out around NoJumper, and a bunch of dummies were talking about this stuff publicly on the platform. It also got to the point where people were calling Adam the feds because he was encouraging all of this self-snitching on his show, asking questions the police could possibly use. I mean, look at this clip.
I saw this video that alleged that it was you involved in this crazy ass shootout. They did pay a visit to my residence, and my lawyer spoke to them, and they made it clear that I'm not in any kind of trouble right now. I'm not being investigated, but what they did want to get their hands on, which is kind of crazy, is that they wanted to see the cease and desist that we received from Big U maybe a year ago, that basically was requesting that we remove a podcast appearance in which Loose Cannon said that Big U had prior knowledge of Nipsey Hussle's death before it actually happened.
Regardless, the police definitely watched some NoJumper to help themselves in this case.
I see a lot of people saying that 22 is the reason why Brick got caught up. Get out of here. 22, you know what I do. I put people in position, put them on the podcast, give them jobs, help them make legal money. A lot of the shit that people are getting caught up for, especially with Brick, it's like, I'm not seeing anything that says anything about stuff that he's done in the last 2 years since he's been with us, right? So, you know, end of the day, I do employ people from the streets, and I guess, you know, people from the streets sometimes get caught up in federal RICO indictments, whatever the this shit is.
But lots of fans still blame Adam. The reason I bring all of this up is because it got so hectic, and I can't imagine being a fan of NoJumper from the early days and seeing the entire platform turn into tons of people that nobody knows, a bunch of interviews, and just gang-related stuff all the time. After the news about NoJumper going broke came out, a lot of fans began to theorize that the reason he said he's going to make all of these changes and the fact that they're going broke was because he got too wrapped up into the gang stuff. Like one fan commented, "I smell a move and rebrand from street gang members back to rappers. Who wants to bet?" Another person said, "Nah, y'all going broke because you keep bringing them corny ass artists and gang members on. Don't nobody want to hear that shit." Which I think really amplifies the public sentiment. Regardless, after everything that's gone down the past like 5 years, I don't think most fans feel too bad for Adam. 2 years before this even happened, a fan said on Reddit, "The collapse of NoJumper needs to be studied in business schools as a case study on how poor leadership can cause a company to collapse. Every decision made by Adam literally is the opposite of what he should have done. From not drawing up proper contracts with staff, him literally being missing from the office half the time, leaving Josh to handle staff, exposing your friend and longtime employee, to publicly embarrassing and firing an employee on air. The list is long of all the terrible management decisions made by NoJumper and Adam specifically." Another fan on Reddit said this, "NoJumper has become a cesspool of sensationalism and superficiality. What started as a platform for underground culture has devolved into a parade of clout chasing and cringeworthy interviews. The hosts seem more interested in creating drama and viral moments than in delivering any actual hip-hop content. The lack of depth and constant pandering to the lowest common denominator makes it hard to take the whole channel seriously. Someone responded saying, "This ain't a hip-hop channel, it's a gang channel at this point." Clearly, NoJumper has lost their way, and it's finally being reflected in their finances. I think a really good contrast to the NoJumper channel is the Joe Budden podcast, because over the years, he's just really maintained a hip-hop focused and centric discussion and hasn't chased clout, tried to go viral, or any of that stuff, at least too much. Whereas the NoJumper podcast just devolved into a huge mess with everything I've described in this video. So maybe Adam will try to take the channel back to its roots, but after all of the controversy and things he's been exposed or called out for, I doubt they will ever get back to where they once were. Not only has NoJumper fallen far from where it once was, but so has Lyrical Lemonade, another platform that was huge at the time of NoJumper. It seems like just yesterday, a new viral video was popping up on the Lyrical Lemonade YouTube channel, with tons of new talent blowing up from the cosign. They actually put on so many artists and had so many viral videos that people were calling it the Lyrical Lemonade effect. But recently their relevance has declined with a huge drop in views, and it seems like their founder Cole Bennett has shifted his focus, and he's even considering quitting music videos. So to understand how Lyrical Lemonade went from a music industry powerhouse to what now seems like just another music video page, we gotta go back to the beginning. Real quick, my name is Matt. I make weekly music related content, so make sure to stick around and subscribe for more videos like this. Also, I wanted to say this one's a bit more opinionated, but I've seen other people express this opinion as well, so let me know what you think down below, but just keep that in mind while you watch, and let's continue. Lyrical Lemonade all began when Cole Bennett was in high school and wanted to start a blog about hip-hop music, specifically underground Chicago artists.
I started Lyrical Lemonade because I knew I wanted to start a blog, so I was in study hall, and I was just like, what do I do? Like, I want to become more involved. I want to do a bunch of different stuff. I had like everything mapped out on paper, and I went home to my mom and I was like, I want to do this, like yada yada yada. I found a web designer to come over, and as he was on his way over, like we were gonna set everything up, I still didn't know what I wanted to name everything. So I was like, Mom, like what do I name it? We're like bouncing ideas back and forth. I want it to be catchy.
You and your mom thinking up the idea for the name of a hip-hop
like,
website?
Yeah, exactly. It was hilarious. And she's like a classic like 50-year-old, like white mom. So she's like Lyrical Lemonade, and I was like, Mom, like, what are you talking about? And then I was like, wait, like that's actually like that's perfect.
His mom came up with the name Lyrical Lemonade, and he set up the website. He then started driving to Chicago all the time to shoot music videos, and after making a bunch of connections, decided to also start throwing concerts. Cole said, "When I started doing videos, it was really like the second layer of Lyrical Lemonade. The first layer was the blog. I loved writing and covering new local talent that wasn't being covered."
I started throwing shows, I started doing more music videos, I started expanding. After I graduated high school, I moved right to the city. Went to DePaul University, and just from there I just made connections, and after class every day, whenever I had free time, I was just doing whatever I could.
Eventually, he booked Uzi and had a huge show, which really showed that he was stepping outside of just local Chicago acts. On top of that, as Cole was growing his brand, he began to work with bigger and bigger artists. He met Famous Dex, and they locked in for a music video, which was actually Cole's first video to hit 1 million views on YouTube, and it is now sitting over 20 million views. After that, it was to the moon, and Lyrical Lemonade started connecting with tons of artists all over the country. Cole, as a newer videographer, had limited connections, so it's not like he was working with a bunch of huge artists right out the gate. The main focus of Lyrical Lemonade seemed to be working with bubbling talent and promoting them on the platform. Of course, as Lyrical Lemonade grew, they got the opportunity to work with bigger and bigger artists, and by like 2017, Lyrical Lemonade was pretty established as a dominant platform in the music industry.
Let's talk about Lyrical Lemonade. Explain what this is to those who might not fully comprehend.
So Lyrical Lemonade is it's based in Chicago, but we're kind of like trying to expand on that. It's a event coordination blog. It's we do the music videos, everything. So it's like we have a clothing line. It's like a bunch of different avenues all under like one brand name. And I've done a lot of shows in Chicago. I put on Uzi's first show in Chicago. I have Cardi coming in February. Like I say, I do the music videos and the clothing, just a lot of different stuff. But essentially, it's just like a platform that's just like it was initially meant for expanding on Chicago artists, but now we're kind of trying to expand and just,
Like Cole said, they had expanded outside of just Chicago and were dominating the entire music industry. It got to the point where if you got that Lyrical Lemonade cosign, you had made it as an artist. It's hard to explain just how influential Lyrical Lemonade was like in the mid to late 2010s, but they were the go-to music video page if you wanted to find new talent. Lyrical Lemonade helped to break artists like Lil Pump, Ski Mask the Slump God, Lil Xan, Lil Skies, Juice WRLD, Comethazine, Lil Mosey, Lil Tecca, and many more. They all had huge music videos, usually for what was their breakout song. Many people dubbed this the Lyrical Lemonade effect, meaning if you had a hot song and got a Lyrical Lemonade music video, you were going to blow up. A YouTuber named Marvelous Beats covered the Lyrical Lemonade effect and discussed how powerful Lyrical Lemonade was for breaking Lil Skies into the music industry.
The song Red Roses was without a doubt his breakthrough record and received a Cole Bennett music video on the Lyrical Lemonade channel on October 18th, 2017. We'll now quickly shift over to his Social Blade and turn the clock back to this date, where we can clearly see a drastic change in not only his Instagram followers, but also his followers across all his other platforms. Really going to show the true impact that Lyrical Lemonade has on shaping bubbling artists.
On top of that, a few years ago I covered a similar topic, and in that video I was showing genius page views from artists before and after a Lyrical Lemonade video. It's a strange metric, but artists like Lil Pump, Lil Xan, and Lil Tecca all saw a big increase in views following the Lyrical Lemonade videos. So clearly Lyrical Lemonade really had an ability to showcase up-and-coming talent, and there was an audience that was really looking for it. In that video I mentioned where I talked about Lyrical Lemonade, one of the top comments was, "I'm gonna be honest, before Lyrical Lemonade I had never heard of Juice, Jack Harlow, SSG Kobe, Cochise, Tecca, Leroy, Comethazine, and there's probably more that I most likely forgot I discovered through Cole." Lyrical Lemonade was known as the go-to channel to find a banger new song paired with a great music video. However, I feel like that would eventually change. In my opinion, the last time it felt like Lyrical Lemonade was really successfully helping put artists on the map was the era with Baby Santana, Cash Dami, Cochise, Sofago, SSG Kobe, and people like that. Those videos seem pretty impactful. However, I think the last time Lyrical Lemonade like fully put on an artist was with Jack Harlow and What's Poppin', since most listeners didn't know him before that song and video. So if Lyrical Lemonade isn't putting artists on like they used to, then what happened to Lyrical Lemonade? Well, a lot of fans over the past couple of years have been debating online whether or not Lyrical Lemonade fell off, and there are a few reasons I think people are having this conversation. First of all, Lyrical Lemonade has been working with a lot of the same artists over the past few years, artists that we all already know about and have seen multiple times on the Lyrical Lemonade YouTube channel. It's also a lot of more mainstream artists that Lyrical Lemonade's been working with over the years, like they got a bunch of videos with Eminem, Drake, Justin Bieber, and more people like that. But I wouldn't say that this is entirely their fault. I mean, there haven't really been any artists other than maybe like Yeet who have come out with smash hits like there was back in the day when Lyrical Lemonade was putting on for tons of people. There really have not been nearly as many artists to break into the mainstream as there were back in the mid to late 2010s, and the ones that aren't usually going on Lyrical Lemonade. They still have made an effort to work with newer artists like Ian, Netspend, Big X The Plug, and more, but these artists just aren't going nearly as crazy as the people Lyrical Lemonade came up with. Plus, the Netspend video got a bunch of comments of people talking about how they felt like old heads now, so I guess it really is just a shift in the generations and what's popular now. Regardless, Lyrical Lemonade has definitely shifted their focus to more mainstream artists and more relevant things. I mean, they did a music video for Jack Black and a bunch of stuff for the Minions, which is definitely cool, but it doesn't feel the same as back when they were making videos with Famous Dex in apartments or Lil Pump in a stairwell. I think a fan on Reddit summed it up well when they said, "Maybe because I'm no longer a teenager, but his stuff from 2016 to 2017 felt way more authentic. His new stuff feels so corporate now." And I think that sentence and the word corporate really sums up how a lot of fans are feeling, because most of their music videos are somewhat formulaic and they work with a lot of the same artists again and again and again, rather than new underground talent. On top of that, Lyrical Lemonade has branched out to collabs with giant movies like the Minions, throwing festivals, and doing things like that. And I noticed that in some of the music videos there were other directors or other people doing different things that Cole used to do, so it got me wondering, maybe Cole Bennett has shifted his focus away from the music video side of things. And recently this past year he confirmed those suspicions. On May 2nd of 2024, Cole Bennett made a post to his Instagram account announcing that Lyrical Lemonade wasn't going to be his main focus anymore, or at least the music video side of things. He said, "Since 2013 I have directed and edited every music video that exists on the Lyrical Lemonade YouTube channel. The channel currently sits at 22 million subscribers and over 11 billion total views. views. I started this all at age 17 as a passion project. I never thought it was possible for it to become what it is today. I've been taking some time to think about what I want the next decade of my journey to look like. I want to continue storytelling in all different mediums, specifically feature films. In order to do that, I need to allow myself the space to become a student again. I have so much to learn. I also feel I have much to give. I want to pass on my resources and my experience to the next generation of Lyrical Lemonade music video directors. We are building a home for aspiring creatives to flourish. The first director we are welcoming in is one with a bright mind and a sharp eye. I will still personally be directing music videos as well, but just a select few a year. I promise to make them very special. Thank you for joining me on this adventure. Let's keep the story going. So clearly, new underground talent and killer music videos is not the main focus for Cole Bennett anymore. However, the new directors he brings on may breathe more life into the platform. When the last underground scene was coming up with artists like Yeet, there were a bunch of other music video platforms like Mosh Pit or Kids Take Over that were really pushing the envelope and putting on for underground artists. And maybe Cole plans on recruiting some of those directors. Don't get me wrong, Lyrical Lemonade is still a really cool platform, and obviously they didn't fall off. They throw amazing festivals every year that clearly have a lot of effort put into them. I mean, they had their own video village with mini sets from iconic videos. That's pretty sick. They have really cool merch, and they have their own lemonade, and they even put out their own album recently. Although it was met with mixed reviews, clearly Lyrical Lemonade is still doing cool, fun, and creative things. It just seems like the music video front hasn't been pushing the envelope the past few years like it used to back in the day. I'm sure Cole Bennett is going to do some really cool things going forward. He's clearly very talented and passionate, and you can't expect him to do the same thing forever. People want to do more, and that's clearly what's happening with Lyrical Lemonade. And while Lyrical Lemonade had a lot of cultural impact, it was nowhere near where Worldstar once was. It seems like just yesterday everybody was yelling Worldstar when there was a fight, or you would go and check out Worldstar's page to find some of the hottest up-and-coming artists. But nowadays it just seems like a page where anybody and everybody can post their mediocre music videos, and their blog posts these days just seem to lack the entertainment value that once made them stand out. So to understand how Worldstar went from being this huge cultural influence to something that no one really talks about anymore, we got to go back to its creation. Also, another big page that used to have a bit more of a cultural influence was Lyrical Lemonade, but I feel like they kind of lost that touch, and I want to talk about it, but I might get cooked for my opinion, so let me know what you guys think down below, and make sure to subscribe and stick around, and I'll make the video in the next couple weeks. Anyways, let's continue. In 2005, a guy named Lee O'Donnell, aka Q, was trying to make some money. As a rap fan, he decided to start a website called Worldstar Hip Hop so he could sell mixtapes. However, for whatever reason, hackers decided to destroy his website right after it was launched, so Q had a little bit of a setback. But he decided, after being inspired by YouTube, that he would shift the content of his website to becoming more of a video platform instead.
How did you start Worldstar? Like, how was that idea?
I mean, it came about just like, you know what I mean, you know, seeing the space with YouTube, you know what I mean, the success of YouTube back then when they got signed with Google, and I noticed that everything's gonna be going towards videos, you know what I'm saying, because I was one of the first cats to do a mixtape sites in 01. And then I was like, yo, this, you know, it's too saturated right now. Let me go ahead and think of the next curve. So that was like videos online. You know what I'm saying? Cause I respected the DVDs in the hood, and I felt like cats can't get these DVDs to be seen all over the world. So, you know, why not, you know what I'm saying, chop it up, break it up, and put it out there. So, you know, the whole masses just loved it, you know what I mean?
Very quickly, he started posting videos on the Worldstar website, but there was something interesting about the videos he was posting. A lot of the Worldstar videos were crazy, almost live leak level crazy. It was fight videos, sexual videos, and everything and anything in between. It wasn't entirely hip-hop related. Honestly, most of it wasn't hip-hop related, and it wasn't long before it just became known as a website that had crazy fight videos and things like that. One of the first vids that kind of blew the site up was when a guy who went by the name Trashman took responsibility for killing the rapper Stacked Bundles. And with this type of crazy content, pretty quickly Worldstar was getting 4 million views a month. And eventually they became so widely known for crazy fight videos that everyone was screaming Worldstar when there was a fight.
When you look at how far Worldstar has come, I mean, it's a phenomenon, right? I mean, like, you just hear people say Worldstar, right? It is a meme on camera now.
It's a battle cry.
Yeah.
Worldstar! Worldstar! Worldstar!
Yeah, yeah, Worldstar! Damn! Yeah, yeah, Worldstar!
Worldstar! Two knockouts! Knockout! Worldstar!
How's that for a badass?
Woo! Worldstar! Worldstar!
And obviously it wasn't only fight videos. They had some other stuff like funny moments, twerk videos, and pretty much anything else that was entertaining. To get an idea of what they were posting, they would title their videos things like, "He warned him, bully asking for a fight gets dropped," or "One-legged man on crutches tries to shoot up a store." They even had a video called "Rat and Pigeon Go at It in Brooklyn." All of their videos had that early internet vibe that's pretty hard to describe, but you can really only see it on like Facebook nowadays. It's hard to explain how culturally relevant Worldstar was, but I remember back in like middle school, everyone was watching their fight videos on the computers in the computer lab, and everyone would scream Worldstar when something crazy happened. It was truly a different time. But what was unique about Worldstar is that apart from YouTube, they were one of the first places on the internet to post funny moments, fight videos, and crazy clips that people love to watch. There was also this infamous hip-hop groupie named Kat Stacks who would post viral videos on there talking about her sexual experiences with rappers. One of her viral videos was one of her with Soulja Boy, and her later saying that he was a crackhead. And things like this helped to blow up Worldstar for a while, until she claimed years later that Q paid her to make up these stories. Another thing they did differently was the watermark. I don't know how often people were watermarking things back in the late 2000s, but Worldstar watermarked all of their viral videos, which drove a ton of attention to the website. Worldstar got so big that companies were even using it for promotion, with people like Diddy even using Worldstar to announce his work with Ciroc Vodka, which was a good thing back then. Q was getting tens of millions of dollars in investment offers for his company and clearly was on the come up. By 2011 and 2012, Worldstar was probably at their peak popularity, ranking as the 278th most visited URL in the United States. Worldstar got so big that it got to the point where the police would even monitor the website when looking for leads. A spokesperson for one sheriff's department said, "We pretty much rely on the public to report on these videos, and they are pretty good about sending them to us." As you can imagine, if the police are monitoring your website to get like leads on their cases, there may be some issues. And that was definitely the case, as Worldstar very quickly became very controversial. Billboard once described Worldstar as often being dismissed for lowest common denominator entertainment, and this type of thing garnered a lot of complaints against the site. One of the most famous criticisms of the website is when a video was posted of a kid who was saying he wanted to kill President Bush.
By listening closely, the President of the United States of America, George W. Bush, will die. And I'm serious this time. I'm not playing around. Somebody got to take care of the trash. Somebody got to take them out. And that's going to be one of my people. So watch out, George W. Bush. There's going to be snipers, killers, and bounty hunts coming from you.
Apparently there was like 8 minutes of this, and I thought it was hilarious because who's taking this little kid seriously? But apparently Bill O'Reilly from Fox News was taking him seriously because he did a whole segment attacking Worldstar for posting this video.
Kid looks to be about 9 or 10 on his hip-hop website. Do we know anything more about him?
It's really disgusting. It's really frightening.
It's child abuse. It's crime. This is a crime. If this were an adult, the Secret Service would arrest the adult. Now, I believe the Secret Service should arrest the parents of this kid and the purveyor of the website. Now, we know who the website is, correct?
Yes, it's registered, but I don't know much else about him.
But the Secret Service should investigate this, and you can't arrest the kid, but you can certainly, this is child abuse. There's no question this is child abuse.
So yeah, this situation was a pretty big deal and one of the first major attacks on Worldstar. Although looking back, I can't believe that this was anyone's main complaint about the website. What's really funny about this though is that after Bill O'Reilly was kicked off Fox for a sexual harassment controversy, Worldstar reported on it, which I bet they did with a lot of joy. However, there were some much more serious complaints against Worldstar. One of them was the age-old complaint of kids being able to access the website. But Q said, well, it's up to the parents. The parents got to put that censorship on their computers. There were also many other people who said it was unethical for Q and Worldstar to profit off of people's suffering with all the fight videos, or to make money from the many other controversial things that happened on there.
People when they hear you talk like that, they be like, well, why do you put all them negative images on Worldstar if you care so much about the community then?
I mean, again, we show everything, you know what I'm saying? It's not just going to paint this Disneyland picture for everyone wants to see. So we like to show the good, the bad, and the ugly. And, you know, that's our job as well, to be real. You know what I'm saying? I'm hip hop. You know, I was around hip hop since the birth. And, you know, growing up, you know what I'm saying, the hood is all about keeping it real, loyalty. And I think that these videos were there before Worldstar. It's not just something that we created, you know what I mean?
Q has also said in relation to the controversy, We're showing people what's been going on forever, and people want to point at us and blame us for what's going on. He said that Worldstar was like the CNN of the ghetto. Another complaint was the hip-hop part of Worldstar hip-hop, with people saying that Q and his platform were misrepresenting hip-hop and its culture. And based on some of his statements, that might not have been too far-fetched. Q once said, "Hip-hop is for the sex, the drugs, the violence, the beef, the culture. That's the competitiveness of hip-hop." So I felt like the site needed to be R-rated. People may be offended by some of the content, but hey, the internet is not a censorship boat. We're the Carnival Cruise, man. You don't have to log on. It seems like in every single interview Q did, he was having to defend Worldstar from the public and the critics. Worldstar was so crazy that even Childish Gambino made a song called Worldstar where he was mainly mocking the viewers and partially the website for being obsessed with fame and going viral despite the violent or crazy actions that were necessary, which ironically is still a huge thing today. But it wasn't just critics who had a problem with Worldstar. 50 Cent and Q also had a little bit of a beef for a while. It's funny because it feels like every single video I do about anything 50 Cent is always involved one way or another. But regardless, in 2009, 50 Cent decided to sue Worldstar for using his image on their website without his permission. I don't think 50 cared that much, but he was definitely having some fun when he got a phone call to speak with Q.
I would like that very much. Could you please put him on the line?
All right, let me act. I don't want to just say I gotta be fair. I can't set anybody up.
He's not gonna want to talk with me here. He's afraid for his life.
Can you hold on and I'll go check?
Angie, he's afraid for his life. Don't what's up me, you sucker. Huh? Don't what's up me, you sucker. I should black your eye.
So shit gonna black my eye?
I said, don't what's up me, you sucker. Tell him I was on my tour bus in 2003, you punk. And you created an area where everybody can try and hate on me. Pay with me if you want. Pay with me if you want. You see the suit and tie, you think I clean all the way up like that? Watch me show you some of the old me.
I'm trying to talk to you one-on-one.
All right, then you come to the office and we sit down and that's it.
All right, we'll talk.
We'll talk later. We'll talk later. Ain't nothing to talk about on the air. You heard me.
I think some of that was jokes though, because eventually Q and 50 patched it up and settled the suit years later. But all of this goes to show how controversial Worldstar used to be. So in my opinion, it seems like they kind of tried to switch it up a little bit, and it seems as if they tried to use their platform for a bit more good. On top of that, Worldstar was struggling to compete with platforms like YouTube and Vine, which was a thing at that time. Q said, "There's no reason we shouldn't be standing up with the Snapchats, the Vines. We're missing that piece to make a full picture. It's all about finding the right team." And because of everything I just talked about, there obviously were some reasons why they weren't up there with those platforms. So it seemed like Worldstar began dipping their hands in other sorts of media as a way of expanding or pivoting. Eventually it seemed as if Worldstar in its later years was more known for breaking artists or always having up-and-coming talent on their page, rather than just crazy clips. In 2008, Worldstar exclusively premiered its first big music video with Ace Hood and DJ Khaled's track Cash Flow. Q said, "Khaled saw we were growing fast and we got that first exclusive video. And that kind of made people realize we just didn't have crazy videos, but we premiered music videos too." It took a while for them to pivot to premiering videos as one of their main objectives, but eventually I think that was the next big thing they were known for.
Well, Stephen Derry, rappers want to be on it, so do aspiring video vixens. Sometimes they make news. Always the Worldstar hip-hop website is a must-see for hundreds of thousands of viewers every day, and now they're branching out into new territory.
On WorldstarHipHop.com, you'll see exclusive videos by hot rappers like Future, entertaining stunts, rants, fights, or outrageous videos.
Over the years, Worldstar helped break artists like 6ix9ine, YBN Amir, Smoke Perp, Ice Spice, Blueface, 21 Savage, and a ton more. Keep in mind I said they helped break these artists, putting out huge music videos in their early careers, because up until fairly recently they had tons and tons and tons of huge music videos posted to their page. Billboard said, "Worldstar has a long track record of being early on rap's rising stars. A lot of stuff broke on Worldstar. If Q felt a way about something, he really acted on it. There's a lot of stuff that wouldn't have happened in the industry if it wasn't for him. The streets pay attention to Worldstar. They dictate what's going on, what's hot in the culture. Their YouTube page particularly was like their last bastion of hope for the company. But then something happened that would derail Worldstar's future forever." On January 23rd of 2017, the founder of Worldstar, Lee O'Donnell, aka Q, tragically passed away at the age of 43. Worldstar issued a statement saying, Q was a brilliant businessman who championed urban culture, ultimately creating the largest hip-hop website in the world. But more than that, he was a devoted father and one of the nicest, most generous persons to ever grace this planet. And while Q was a controversial figure because of many people claiming he was just profiting off of terrible things, like The Guardian even saying that he started modern blaxploitation, it seemed as if Q genuinely had good intentions with his company. For example, a few years before his passing, Q made some documentaries about the life of inner cities of places like Chicago and Miami. According to Billboard, rather than treat low-income areas as aesthetic fodder, these videos gave voices to local residents and talent and attempted to flesh out the complex and complicated worlds so often glossed over by other outlets. But after Q died, it seemed like Worldstar did as well, and a lot of fans seemed to share that same sentiment. Q definitely had a vision for the company and knew what he was doing. He was able to successfully pivot from the blog era to the social media era, utilizing other platforms like YouTube and Instagram. Right before he passed, he even announced that Worldstar was going to be premiering their own show on MTV, because Q was smart enough to realize that doing the same thing they were doing wouldn't last forever. But Q never got to see his brand make it to TV, and his vision was never fully realized. After the passing of Q, Worldstar was purchased by a company called Media Lab that owns other old and dying websites like Kick and DatPiff. And based on how those websites ended up, it's no wonder that Worldstar kind of fell apart too. Nowadays, Worldstar is in quite the sad state. Like, I checked out their website and it just seems outdated. Then I went to the advertise on Worldstar page and it was just claiming that Worldstar is the #1 destination for hip-hop music and culture on the internet, which just isn't true. If you want to find new rap songs or culturally important things, you're gonna go to TikTok, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, and all these other sites that got dedicated pages to the stuff you're interested in. Not Worldstar's pages full of spammy posts that are almost all paid promotion. I actually looked at their prices and it's $5,000 for an Instagram post, $8,000 for a YouTube post, $2.5 for an Instagram story, and $3.5 for a TikTok post. But because so many people nowadays are buying this stuff, it's just overly saturated and no one really cares. So it definitely isn't worth the money. On top of that, a lot of their posts nowadays are just really lame and some of them are in very poor taste. Like when Takeoff died, they posted a picture of his body like it was just the news. And it's just such a poorly run page now. No one is really going to blogs these days. The younger generations look to pages on already established platforms like Instagram and TikTok. People are watching videos on pages like Complex, Rap TV, Barstool, and the millions of other random pages posting videos. And don't get me wrong, Worldstar is still around and getting decent views on their TikTok clips and Instagram posts, but they just don't bring anything unique to the table anymore. For example, Rap TV is one of the Instagram pages that's always on top of the news. Complex has had unique series like sneaker shopping. Barstool has their Caleb Presley interviews. All of these pages have things that are unique to them. But Worldstar no longer has the cultural impact that they once did, like the crazy videos or breaking new artists. They aren't getting people like Diddy to do promotion on their page anymore. Not like that's really a good thing these days, but back then it was. Not to mention that most of the views they get these days are no longer on their blog, but they're on other platforms. I think a fan on Reddit put it well when they said, "This is just due to the age of blog/platforms other than social media kind of dying out. Attention has been monopolized by IG, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, which kind of kills the air in the room for the other sites." It had a good run. Without Q there to come up with other ideas to keep Worldstar alive, instead Media Lab has the control of the website and seems to be letting it exist on life support, using the same old techniques that every other media page does nowadays. Q wanted Worldstar to stand out, and for a while it did have a cultural influence. But now that a big corporation has control of Worldstar, it seems as if the page has succumbed to that lifeless corporate nonsense that Q tried to avoid. But another major downfall of music media in general is the consolidation of corporations, like we saw with Vevo. However, it's even worse when it comes to the live music industry. Ticketmaster, whose parent company is Live Nation, has recently been sued by the Department of Justice for effectively running a monopoly on live entertainment in the music industry. On top of this, there have been multiple big artists publicly calling out Ticketmaster, Pearl Jam testified against them, and there have been executive orders passed in an effort to combat their crazy high ticket prices. But this may leave you with a few questions, like, why do so many fans and artists alike hate Ticketmaster? What even are Ticketmaster and Live Nation? And how did Ticketmaster essentially monopolize the entire live entertainment industry? Well, to understand this, we have to go back to Ticketmaster's inception. First though, you may be wondering, What even is Ticketmaster? Well, Ticketmaster is a ticket sales and distribution company that was founded way back in 1976 in Phoenix, Arizona. They're actually inspired by a similar software model called Select a Seat, but Select a Seat went bankrupt, so they decided to try their hand at it. They got some investment money and began competing with another rival company called Ticketron. Nowadays, though, Ticketmaster is essentially the main website you go to if you want to buy tickets for big artists like Taylor Swift, especially those large concerts where the artists are selling out stadiums. Their parent company is Live Nation, a company that owns over 330 live entertainment venues globally and calls themselves the largest live entertainment company in the world and the largest producer of live music concerts in the world. So clearly these companies are killing it in the live entertainment space. I mean, Ticketmaster was reported to have 63% of people who bought tickets online buy a ticket from them in 2024. And in 2024 as well, 151 million people attended Live Nation events. And look at this chart with all of these amphitheaters owned by venue operator. Live Nation just has so many. But like I said, to understand truly how Ticketmaster and Live Nation were able to take over the music industry, we got to go back to the start. After Ticketmaster was founded in 1976, it was bought by a guy named Bert Cantor, who hired a guy named Frederick Rosen to take over in 1980. They realized that Ticketmaster was poorly mismanaged and decided to step it up. Rosen became the CEO and they raised a ton of money. Then they started trying to work with venues. So back in the day, I know a lot of you young folks might not understand this, but you had to go to an actual box office at the venue or call in and be like, hey, I need a ticket. And clearly that's a lot more difficult than just buying the ticket on your phone like nowadays. So Ticketmaster's main selling point was, hey, you guys got these box offices that you're selling tickets at, and it's really expensive. You got to pay the employees, you got to pay for the building, you got to pay for all this stuff. So why don't you just shut those down for a few days when the tickets go live to see how much more efficient we are? One employee at Ticketmaster said this about Fred's sales tactics. So Fred came in and said, right now you have a cost center. It's called your box office. You pay for the equipment and you have to pay for the labor to sell the tickets. I'm going to give you the equipment for free. I'm going to equip your entire box office with terminals. I'm going to teach your people how to sell tickets over those terminals, and I'm going to support those people. What I'm going to ask you to do is close down the first day of sale on concerts and let me sell those tickets through my outlets. He continued to say that they would also share the profits with the venues as well, obviously, so that they could, benefit from it. And this business model worked extremely well, and Ticketmaster began dominating the music industry. They even began giving venues money up front, which helped promoters with their budget, but it also kind of made them dependent on those advances from Ticketmaster. And by the end of the 80s, Ticketmaster had basically taken over. In 1982, the company's sales hovered around $1 million, supported by 25 employees. 3 years later, that jumped to just over $200 million, a vast improvement, but still only about a third of Ticketron's efforts. Then in 1987, Ticketmaster finally eclipsed its competitor, with both selling just under $400 million worth of tickets. Their main competitor, Ticketron, who I've mentioned a few times, was fallen off, and eventually the company was sold. And can you guess who bought that company? It was Ticketmaster. You got it right. This is when many people think that Ticketmaster became a monopoly, or at least started to become a monopoly, when they bought their biggest rival. Ticketmaster, however, continued to grow and acquire their competitors over the years, like Ticket World USA, Capital Automated Ticketing, Dayton's Ticketing, and Seats. And this is where the problems began. You see, back in the day, tickets for concerts were actually very cheap. In 1956, you could see Elvis, the biggest rock star in the entire world, for $1.50, which adjusted for inflation is just 17 bucks. In 1966, you could see the Beatles, who again were huge artists, for $5.50, which adjusted for inflation is $53. In 1976, you could see Queen, another great and massively successful band, for $7.50, which again, adjusted for inflation, is just $41. And don't get me started on the fact that you could see Michael Jackson for $28, which today is just $85. Of course, over the years, you can see like an upward trend in price, but none of them are too outlandish. I mean, I would pay $85 in a heartbeat to see Michael Jackson, but I promise you, if he had a show today, it would be thousands of dollars. And keep in mind that these are the biggest artists of their time. It's like seeing Taylor Swift or The Weeknd for $30. Fred Rosen tried to explain away why tickets kept getting more expensive, but no one was really buying it.
As music evolved, as you went from $5 concert tickets in the 70s, $4 concert tickets in the 70s, until the mid-80s, because music is popular and the people's music, it was one price fits all. And that didn't work because, the fans who bought them, said, well, wait a minute. I paid $18, and now I can get $750. You know, and so the artists started to look at it and say, maybe we should, then the business people, maybe we should get some of this money. And look, it's a business like anything else. You want to be fair to your fans.
Also, back in the day, artists used to not rely on concerts so much for money, at least as much as they do now. I've talked about this before in my video on Spotify, but nowadays concerts are one of the main ways artists make money. That's because back in the day, they made a lot more off of their music from record sales or CD sales because there were much higher margins. But ever since the streaming era of music, it's been way harder for artists to make money on actual music, so they rely more on concerts. Back in the day, concerts were mostly just promo, which is why they kept the prices so low. Because of all these reasons, by 2024, well, it costs an average of $135 to see an artist live in concert. The prices of concert tickets have risen at a much higher rate than tickets for movies and general inflation, and most people blame Ticketmaster and their shady business practices for the reason why. The first time that Ticketmaster was called out for their shady practices was in a large public fashion back in 1994 by Pearl Jam. The band claimed that Ticketmaster was cutting them out of venue bookings because Pearl Jam was making an effort to keep ticket prices low for their fans, and they thought Ticketmaster was overpricing the ticket. Pearl Jam even tried to do their own tickets at a price they thought was appropriate for the fans, but Ticketmaster threatened to sue them and turn off their ticketing machines. Because of this, Pearl Jam filed a complaint with the Department of Justice.
Pearl Jam has accused Ticketmaster of being a monopoly and of using its power to scuttle a summer tour the band had planned, with tickets to sell for a relatively low $18. Ticketmaster's chief, buttressed by representatives of the Los Angeles Forum and New Jersey's Giants Stadium, was at the hearing to proclaim his company's innocence. Pearl Jam was supported by representatives of REM and Aerosmith, whose manager left no doubt that more than one band is unhappy with Ticketmaster.
They also boycotted Ticketmaster and just flat out canceled their tour, blaming Ticketmaster. And it wasn't just Pearl Jam that had these sentiments. U2's manager Paul McGuinness said, "I think everyone in the business would prefer an atmosphere of competition, but it was the Justice Department that did away with that when they allowed Ticketron to be acquired a few years ago." He said this because the Department of Justice had to greenlight Ticketmaster when acquiring their biggest competitor, Ticketron, which started to seem more and more like a bad idea. On top of this, Ticketmaster had dealt with many lawsuits from many others, like one 2 years prior alleging that Ticketmaster was working with promoters and venues to artificially inflate the convenience or service fees to just make more money. So all of this led to Pearl Jam testifying against Ticketmaster in a congressional hearing.
It is well known in our industry that some portion of the service charges Ticketmaster collects on its sale of tickets is distributed back to the promoters and the venues. It is this incestuous relationship and the lack of any national competition for Ticketmaster that has created the situation we're dealing with today. As a result, our band, which is concerned about keeping the price of its tickets low, will almost always be in conflict with Ticketmaster, which has every incentive to try to find ways to increase the price of the ticket it sells.
They also mentioned that there were many other artists and bands who had these same problems.
I think mainly Kelly Curtis, our manager, has been talking to a lot of different people. I know we've gotten a lot of support from Aerosmith and Grateful Dead and Garth Brooks and REM, Neil Young.
They continue to say that it's pretty much impossible to set up a large tour without using Ticketmaster. This is really funny, but the CEO of Ticketmaster at the time, Fred Rosen, tried to cite one of their own studies, and the study said that Ticketmaster only did 51 million out of the 1.5 billion tickets sold for live events per year, which totally would have been a great argument had the study not included ticket sales for county fairs, museums, amusement parks, state parks, and basically anything that was a ticket, rather than including only music-related events, which is all Ticketmaster did. Despite all of this, though, somehow Ticketmaster came out on top. The DOJ closed their investigation of Ticketmaster without doing anything to stop them from their predatory practices, although they did say that they would continue monitoring Ticketmaster's activity in the ticketing market. And after this, Ticketmaster continued their path to domination. In 1998, Ticketmaster merged with CitySearch. 2 years later, they acquired TicketWeb for $35 million. The Wall Street Journal said, "The move marks an attempt by Ticketmaster to broaden its reach to include the kind of small and mid-sized venues that TicketWeb has served since its formation in 1995. The company thinks those venues will complement the long list of bigger facilities that have typically contracted to make sales through Ticketmaster." By this point, they also had doubled their sales and revenue to 19 million online ticket sales and $864 million in revenue. Ticketmaster continued to buy companies like Paciolon, I don't know how you say that, It's a ticketing software provider. They also bought a ticket reseller called Tickets Now. They also got a UK reseller called Get Me In, and they got a majority share in Frontline Management, which is an artist management company that's worked with artists like Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith, and Christina Aguilera. But Ticketmaster also started lobbying multiple states to change their laws to let venues pick who can resell tickets on the secondary market, claiming to want to prevent scalping. However, critics of this believe that this was going to give Ticketmaster too much power. And this brings us to another huge problem, if not the biggest problem with Ticketmaster, and it's that they always like to blame scalpers. In 2016, the CEO, Michael Rapino, tried to blame scalpers as to why prices were rising. He said that artists should raise their ticket prices to combat the scalper. He also said, "We have to start pricing the house to match the market. We're only scratching the surface of the opportunity for the artist." And this would become a running theme with Ticketmaster throughout their entire lifespan, where instead of taking responsibility for adding fees and essentially price gouging over time, Ticketmaster would put all of the blame on scalpers. And I want you to keep this in mind going forward. Regardless, just like Slither.io, Ticketmaster was eating up all the little worms and growing the business. Then Live Nation, the venue company, purchased Ticketmaster for $400 million. The DOJ looked into this and they had to approve it, just like they did with Ticketron and Ticketmaster, and they gave them some terms. They said that Ticketmaster had to divest itself of one of its ticketing divisions and license its software to a competitor. Basically what that means is they had to let a competitor use their software, and they also had to get rid of one of their ticketing companies. They were also subject to tough anti-retaliation provisions for 10 years to prevent abuse of its power over concerts, artist management, ticketing, and theaters. And they had to sell one of their companies. Regardless, this very obviously created the largest company in live entertainment. On top of that, Live Nation was buying record labels and their artists as well. Shortly after Live Nation bought Ticketmaster, they introduced something called dynamic pricing, which is basically where prices fluctuate based on supply and demand in real time. As I'm sure you can imagine, this pricing model would become a huge problem.
Ticket demand is at its highest, like when concert tickets first get released to the public. Algorithms on Ticketmaster's website recognize that there's more demand for the newly released tickets than the outstanding supply of tickets being sold, and ratchets up the price, essentially preying on fans when they're most vulnerable, relying on the fact that the fear these fans have of not being able to attend their favorite artist's concert will likely coerce them into buying a ticket, even if it's at a price point that far exceeds anything they would have ever expected to pay. And the company's dynamic pricing model is most commonly used for what the company calls its platinum seats, which are the most desirable and highly sought after seating locations at concert venues, like those on the main floor, which are closest to the stage and have the best view of the performance.
Because of this, tickets can get really expensive. And if you've ever heard about artists like Taylor Swift having tickets going for thousands of dollars, this is why. Surprisingly, CEO Michael Rapino actually said that he argued against dynamic pricing, which is very strange considering he's allowed it to happen all this time. Regardless, throughout the 2010s, Ticketmaster just continued growing like a cancer in the music industry. And by 2022, they owned 9 out of 10 concert arenas in the US. However, this whole time that Ticketmaster and Live Nation were just dominating the music industry, ticket prices were rising and fans were really getting fed up with these companies. In 2018, the New York Times posted a report that had multiple allegations of Live Nation threatening venues for selling tickets through AEG, which was Ticketmaster's biggest competitor. Ironically enough, it was also the company that was born out of the Live Nation Ticketmaster merger. Apparently though, a venue owner was thinking his venue was being punished by Live Nation, so he messaged one of them and asked if there was an issue. They had just switched to AEG for tickets as well, and the Live Nation coordinator responded, "Issue? 3 letters. Can you guess what they are?" This guy must have thought he was some anime supervillain talking like that. But regardless, this also violated the anti-retaliation stuff I mentioned earlier. Because the DOJ said if Live Nation and Ticketmaster are to merge, they can't retaliate against people who want to work with others. On top of this, around this time, 5 other venues accused Live Nation of the same thing. That same year, another investigation caused more problems for Ticketmaster. Remember how I said Ticketmaster always blames scalpers and resellers for the reason why tickets were getting so expensive? Well, the CBC and Toronto Star sent 2 undercover journalists disguised as scalpers to Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas.
This hidden camera footage is from inside a meeting of the world's biggest ticket scalpers. CBC went undercover to expose Ticketmaster and its secret scalper program.
I'm a small-time
We're doing maybe 100,000 out of Toronto.
On some undercover FBI type shit, they were pitched on Ticketmaster's professional reseller program. The Ticketmaster rep telling them this said they turn a blind eye to scalpers using bots to buy up all the tickets and sell them at a higher price because these tickets earn Ticketmaster a lot of extra money in fees. They were also told about something called Trade Desk, which essentially was a platform that Ticketmaster made, which allowed scalpers to upload large quantities of tickets to resell them. He said despite all the talk and policing they have on scalpers, Trade Desk users aren't punished. They don't share their information with the site or anything like that.
We approached Ticketmaster's booth. They're promoting something called Trade Desk. We got just a couple more questions. The Trade Desk is an online system for scalpers to resell huge numbers of tickets.
How many tickets do I need to be moving to make this worthwhile?
Well, I've brought on people that are extremely small, and they become pretty good partners for me, doing $500,000 or whatever.
$500,000 or $500,000 tickets?
In sales. In total sales.
And what about scalpers who use fake identities to buy up tickets?
I want to know the straight goods on whether Ticketmaster is going to be policing us using our multiple accounts.
No. I have a gentleman who's got over 200 Ticketmaster.com accounts.
How many brokers are using multiple accounts?
I can't think of any of my clients that aren't using multiple. I mean, they have to.
So that's Ticketmaster telling us that they have brokers who have hundreds of Ticketmaster fake accounts, and they don't care if they're using those fake accounts to buy up all the tickets and then repost them for resale. So long as Ticketmaster's getting a cut, of course.
These scalpers can abuse presale with bots, buy up most of the stock, and immediately resell the tickets at higher prices, leaving fans with no other options. Throughout this video, before now and as you will continue to see, Ticketmaster always tries to shift the blame onto scalpers for the reason tickets are priced so high. They constantly use scalpers as their scapegoat, which is extremely ironic that they were just caught for low-key working with scalpers to keep prices high, and even developed an entire program that scalpers can use to resell. And you may be wondering, why have no laws been passed to prevent things like this from happening? Well, for years the only legislation against something like this was the Bots Act, which prohibited the use of bots and things like that to purchase high volumes of tickets. That was passed in 2016. It's 2025 last time I checked, and nothing's changed, so clearly it's not being enforced too much. Regardless, the undercover journalists exposing this became such a big deal that some US senators sent a letter to Live Nation's CEO asking about Trade Desk. Then Ticketmaster got sued by a law firm for unlawful and unfair business practices that have unjustly enriched the ticket retailer. In response to all of this, the old Ticketmaster president said that Trade Desk doesn't give scalpers an advantage and that they don't let them buy in bulk. He said that they are actively blocking bots and use a lot of information to stop people from making multiple accounts, despite the guy earlier saying that they turn a blind eye to it. Just a year later, Billboard put out an article in which Live Nation admitted that they were helping artists sell thousands of tickets on resale sites at marked up prices instead of market value. The president of US Concerts was on the phone with a promoter who he was telling to resell 88,000 Metallica tickets. The promoter recorded the phone call for some reason, and eventually it got leaked. And Live Nation claimed they did this at the request of about 12 artists, which I wouldn't be surprised if they were lying. The reason they would do this is so they don't look greedy having high ticket prices, but still make a bunch of money through resellers buying them at a higher price than usual and then relisting them even higher. These two scandals were a very big deal, but not a big enough deal for the DOJ to step in and start investigating them again. Eventually though, over time, the fans really got fed up with all the BS they had to deal with about Ticketmaster, and that's when things started looking a little bit better for the music industry. In 2022, fans were pretty upset with Ticketmaster over a Bruce Springsteen concert. This is because the tickets had a base price of $60 to $400, but with dynamic pricing and resellers, the prices rose to over $4,000 for many of the tickets. 6 days after that, there were tickets for an Adele concert going for over $40,000 on resale. I don't know if anyone was actually buying those Adele tickets. I can't imagine anyone was, but I mean, maybe there's someone who wants to see Adele that much. I don't know. But what's really funny is that things really started to go south for Ticketmaster after an issue with Taylor Swift's tour. One of the biggest battles in the fight against Ticketmaster took place after a Taylor Swift tour was announced and the ticket prices were astronomically high and the website crashed. This literally caused a Senate hearing because the Swifties do not mess around.
The website fully crashed and it put me back at the beginning. The line has stopped moving.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not getting them.
So what does this mean? Does this mean I literally just bought Ratatouille for nothing?
They had a pre-sale for the tickets, and it was handled so poorly along with a high demand that the website just crashed. Ticketmaster put out a statement, but fans were not having it. People were responding saying things like, "Funny how all the resellers were able to buy tickets just fine, but the actual fans who have been waiting their whole lives made it to the front of the line, the seat selection screen, or even the payment screen, then were kicked to the back of the queue." And the amount of controversy that this caused was nuts. It's crazy, but it seems like Ticketmaster messing up this Taylor Swift sale got them even more backlash than the time that the CBC actually exposed them for doing something even crazier, in my opinion. Live Nation tried to just blame it on the demand, and of course, scalpers and their bots.
First, and all the Live Nation team is sympathetic that the long wait times and fans who couldn't get what they wanted. Reality is, it's a function of the massive demand that Taylor Swift has. The site was supposed to be opened up for 1.5 million verified Taylor Swift fans. We had 14 million people hit the site, including bots, another story, which are not supposed to be there.
It just gets increasingly ironic that they always pin the blame on the scalpers when they knowingly have worked with them and benefited from it. You guys get the point, so I'll stop bringing it up. After this, the Department of Justice began another investigation into Live Nation. Taylor Swift also put out a statement expressing her issues with how Ticketmaster handled it. Then, 26 Taylor Swift fans sued Ticketmaster, alleging that the company is guilty of antitrust violations, price fixing, and fraud. For some reason, they were only asking for $2,500 per violation, which is very surprising, seeing as how Live Nation is insanely wealthy. And then there was a Senate hearing because of the Taylor Swift scandal.
Live Nation, Ticketmaster, is the 800-pound gorilla here. You have clear dominance, monopolistic control.
Senator, we absolutely agree there are a lot of problems in this industry, and as the leading player, we have an obligation to do better.
1996, Jam produced 100 concerts in arenas, but in 2011, 1 year after the merger, that decreased to 46 concerts. And in 2022, we only produced 14 arena concerts.
The only way to restore competition in this industry is to break up Ticketmaster and Live Nation.
For your band to make $6 out of a $42 ticket price,
yeah, that doesn't feel great.
Doesn't strike me as artist first.
The CFO of Live Nation again blamed the bots and scalpers, saying Ticketmaster was hit with 3 times the amount of bot traffic than we had ever experienced. He said this is what required us to slow down and even pause our sales. This is what led to a terrible consumer experience that we deeply regret. After this, Ticketmaster posted a blog post called "The Arms Race Against Abusive Ticket Scalping." Again, I just can't believe this is their main point. They're trying so hard to look like the good guys when they could just try harder to get rid of scalpers, or put a price cap on tickets, or stop people from buying in bulk, or get rid of dynamic pricing. There are plenty of options to solve this problem. But in probably the best turn of events, after over a decade of letting this monopoly grow, the Department of Justice and 30 state/district attorney generals filed a civil antitrust lawsuit against Live Nation and Ticketmaster for monopolization and other unlawful conduct that thwarts competition in markets across the live entertainment industry. Live Nation responded to this saying, "The DOJ's lawsuit won't solve the issues fans care about relating to ticket prices, service fees, and access to in-demand shows." Calling Ticketmaster a monopoly may be a PR win for the DOJ in the short term, but it will lose in court because it ignores the basic economics of live entertainment. One, I don't know why the Department of Justice needs to do PR moves, and two, this may have been a good statement if not for the fact that Ticketmaster has owned 70% of share for the ticket and live events market, and Live Nation owns about 80% market share for live concerts. This lawsuit was launched on May 23rd of 2024, so there hasn't been any resolution yet, but hopefully they can break up this company and make live music more affordable for the fans. In another surprising turn of events, just a couple months ago, Trump signed an executive order with the goal of trying to make sure competition laws are appropriately enforced in the concert and entertainment industry. So clearly steps are being made in the right direction. But it's also possible that regardless of whatever happens legally, just like the restrictions the DOJ put on Live Nation in the first place or the Bots Act, it's in the realm of possibility that none of these things end up being enforced, just like they haven't been for the last decade or so. So what can we as fans do? Well, personally, I'm pretty cool. I'm pretty hip. I go to a lot of smaller concerts that aren't run by Live Nation or Ticketmaster, and the tickets are pretty cheap. Or a free concert, those are pretty dope, where you just tip the artist afterwards or whatever. But there are also other options, like using Ticketmaster's competitors, like SeatGeek. And this is not not an ad transition. Trust me, I actually am hoping that SeatGeek sees this and sponsors me. Regardless, there are options, although there aren't too many, and hopefully the laws change soon. Corporate consolidation has also affected music streaming services heavily, with corporations like Apple Music and Spotify being the top dogs for as long as I can remember. But new people have attempted to step into the ring, like Jay-Z with his streaming service Tidal, which at launch was quite a bit of a disaster. In 2015, the streaming service Tidal was bought, revamped, and launched by the famous rapper and entrepreneur Jay-Z. He said that the whole objective of this service was to pay artists more, making it possible for more artists to live off of their music, which in theory sounds great. But if we fast forward to now, a decade later, Tidal hasn't really achieved too many of its revolutionary promises. They actually had some pretty big marketing fails, a few lies, and some major controversies that achieved the opposite. And to understand why Jay-Z's streaming service failed and what it was even supposed to be, we got to go back to the beginning. Before Jay-Z was even involved with Tidal, it was a company branching off from another streaming service called Wimp. They launched in Norway in 2010 and were available in other countries like Sweden, Denmark, Germany, and Poland. 4 years later, they were launched in the UK, the United States, and Canada. They also partnered with Sonos for this launch for integration, which honestly was a big play as I know a lot of people who love Sonos speakers. On top of Sonos, they were working with 15 other home audio manufacturers. And after being launched in the United States, Jay-Z decided to get involved. First, he purchased Tidal for $56 million, and then he announced his plans. There were a few main things that Tidal planned to do to set themselves apart from streaming services like Spotify and soon to be Apple Music. By the way, around this time, Apple Music I don't think was fully out, but when they launched, they did this thing where they would give you 3 free months if you signed up, and it was already on everyone's phones because of, you know, iPhone and Apple product. And that's how they hooked me, and I just thought that was an interesting way of marketing because they did a great job at it, to be honest. And immediately they were right up there with Spotify. So Tidal had some really big competition. Regardless, Tidal's main selling point was that they were going to be artist owned. They wanted to prioritize the artist and get true fans of music to support them in supporting their favorite artists, sort of like those people who use BandLab and stuff like that. Jay-Z said, "The challenge is to get everyone to respect music again, to recognize its value. Water is free. Music is $6. But no one wants to pay for music. You should drink free water from the tap. It's a beautiful thing. And if you want to hear the most beautiful song, then support the artist." Their plan was to pay out artists at a higher amount of money than the other streaming services were. If you didn't know, major streaming services are notorious for not really paying their artists that much. Spotify, for example, pays out 0.003 to 0.005 cents USD, which comes out to around $4,000 per million streams. And Apple Music pays 0.007 to 0.01 cents USD, which comes out to around $8,500 for 1 million streams. This is great if you're a big artist like Drake that gets tens of millions of streams on every track, but that simply isn't the case for the majority of artists. For example, I'm a big fan of this band called Origami Angel, and based on their average monthly listeners of 350,000, they're only getting like $1,400 a month off of Spotify, which most definitely is not livable. Tidal, however, has been reported to pay out 0.0125 to 0.014 cents per stream, which if you got 1 million streams would bring in $13,000. Or if you were the band I just mentioned, you'd be making like $4,500. So it's definitely a big improvement on Tidal. Jay-Z said, "Everyone knows that the pay system is unfair to artists. Everywhere else, everyone gets compensated for their work. Music is everywhere. You consume it every day, everywhere you go. The content creator should be compensated. It's only fair." But how is Tidal even able to pay out all this money? Well, another one of Tidal's main selling points, and possibly even pain points at the time, was that there was no free version. There were only 2 paid options available. The first subscription plan was the premium option, which is fairly standard at $10 a month with access to pretty much what Spotify had at the time. The second plan was called Hi-Fi, which was $20 a month with lossless high-fidelity sound quality, Sony 360 Realty audio, Dolby Atmos music, and everything else you got with the regular plan. So basically it's $10 a month extra, but you're supporting the artist more and getting better quality. The subscription plan for the true fan. And honestly, on paper, all of this sounded great. It might not have had a super wide appeal to the general listening audience, but anyone who's super into music and would love to support artists more and listen to higher quality music for what was basically an extra $10 a month would definitely be interested. And although $20 a month is quite steep, I can see what they were going for. However, despite how promising Tidal seemed to be, immediately they ran into a few problems. Right off the rip, Jay-Z bought Tidal and did this press conference thing to announce it, where he got a bunch of celebrities to back it up. They had Beyonce, Rihanna, Kanye, Jack White, Arcade Fire, Usher, Nicki Minaj, Coldplay, Alicia Keys, Calvin Harris, Daft Punk, Deadmau5, Jason Aldean, J. Cole, and Madonna. All of these artists were backing the brand, but when they did the press conference, it was pretty awkward.
Wow!
I know all of us right here, up here, are saying, wow, a couple of times about this being a graduation. Well, that is feeling like a graduation, a little bit like da, 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 da.
I spoke to a lot of different people outside of the industry, and everyone was like, what took so long? Like, this thing was the thing that everyone wanted and everyone feared. If these artists could sit in a room together, the game changes forever. And it happened today.
The press conference came off more as a bunch of super wealthy artists complaining that they weren't making enough money from their music, rather than it being a platform for small artists. And it probably wasn't the best idea to have some of the biggest artists in the world representing a platform where the whole objective is to get small artists able to live off of their music.
When we put our heads together, us collectively working together, combining all of our resources and owning our oil and giving people a higher level of product from a production, from a visual standpoint, I just thought about like how crazy this is, how this is like the beginning of the new world.
I think it also would have been better if they didn't act like they were changing the world. Sure, it's a super cool thing what they were doing, but it wasn't really like revolutionary, and it just seemed over dramatic. They also all went up there and signed some piece of paper like it was the founding fathers signing the Declaration of Independence. And then Madonna got up there all extra and signed it with her leg on the table, and it was just a weird situation. On top of that, there were a bunch of these artists that were also posting hashtag Tidal for all, advertising it on Twitter. Many fans said that this was just an overall super cringy and Illuminati-esque launching ceremony. Even the lead singer for Death Cab for Cutie, Ben Gibbard, said Tidal is going to fail miserably. He said that if he were Jay-Z, he would have featured underpaid independent musicians in order to highlight how Tidal will better pay its artists versus competitive services like Spotify. He continued, I think they totally blew it by bringing out a bunch of millionaires and billionaires and propping them up on stage and then having them all complain about not being paid. Regardless, Tidal launched and it wasn't doing anything too crazy. They had about like 500,000 paying subscribers around that time. And one of the main reasons simply is because your average listener doesn't care enough to pay $20 for high quality audio when Spotify is $10 cheaper.
And as funny as it is, but also admirable that they want to try to do this CD quality audio thing on this platform. People don't really care. People don't. They do not care. I mean, me personally, I care about audio quality. There are some other people who watch the show and people who I've talked to online who are music buffs that care about audio quality, but your average person doesn't really care about whether or not they're listening to the new Nicki Minaj single or the new Rihanna single or the new Deadmau5 single in MP3, WAV, or FLAC. Don't get me wrong, there are some people who do care, but your average music listener can't tell the difference, and they don't care.
Jay actually tried to argue against this line of thinking in interviews, suggesting that plenty of people care about audio quality.
Let's talk about Tidal. This is your music service. You put together this unbelievable lineup of partners, some of the biggest names in all of music. And how is this different from the other music services?
I mean, it's better. Better sound is better everything.
The sound really is a big thing, right?
I mean, they want people to believe that you don't care about sound and quality. And they want you to believe that. Like, we don't care if it's hi-fi or not, but people spend hours and months in the studios mixing their sound and like really crafting the sound, and they want, you know, people to hear, and you know, they pretend as if you don't care about it.
And no disrespect to Jay-Z, but it felt like he was kind of trying to manipulate the listeners. Like he was saying, hey, they say you don't care about audio quality, but trust me, you do care. Like, it just seemed weird. And on top of that, Jay also went on the offensive in a freestyle rap saying,
for the safety net. Ooh, they go around the crazy check. I feel like you two is the biggest culprit. The niggas pay you a tenth of what you're supposed to get. You know niggas die for equal pay, right? You know when I work, I ain't your slave, right? You know I ain't shucking and jiving and high-fiving. You know this ain't back in the days, right?
But again, most people weren't happy, with the top comment on this video being, aw, poor Jay-Z doesn't get enough money on Spotify. It seemed like Tidal had some holes that people were poking in it, and Jay-Z was constantly arguing on Twitter, interviews, and anywhere else about how great Tidal was going to be. Tidal also had this random controversy when they accidentally reactivated former users' accounts and these users got charged. Of course, these people got refunded, but it was upsetting nonetheless. and make sure to keep this incident in mind going forward. Regardless of how Tidal was doing, they tried some more marketing moves to get people on their platform, with one of the more controversial ones being big artists exclusively releasing their albums on the platform. They started out with some exclusive videos from Beyonce, Madonna, and Rihanna, then another exclusive track from Nicki Minaj. But they really upped the ante in 2016 when they released Rihanna's album Anti as a 1-week exclusive stream on the platform. Tidal followed that up by releasing Kanye's The Life of Pablo, Beyonce's Lemonade, and Jay-Z's 444, all exclusively on Tidal. Kanye even said that my album will never be on Apple, and it will never be for sale. You can only get it on Tidal. And for a brief period of time, this strategy worked. They got a ton of downloads, a bunch of new users, and even rose to number 16 in the App Store. Here's a cool graph showing how helpful it was for them with the exclusive releases. And it makes sense. I mean, if you think about these albums, they are huge albums. It's hard to think that these were exclusively released for a period of time. But especially once Kanye's album was released, that's when things started to go south. On the first day of The Life of Pablo's release, it was downloaded at least 500,000 times illegally, according to Torrent Leak. That's enough to certify the album as gold if those were official sales. Of course, sales and streams are different, so it probably wouldn't have been gold off that, but you get what I'm saying. And this is when shit started to hit the fan for Tidal. At first, Tidal never reported this album's streaming numbers, which isn't that great of a sign. For an album to chart on Billboard, you need to report these numbers to some random company that keeps track. And Tidal never revealed these numbers for like 6 weeks, likely because it would have had a poor debut on the charts, and Kanye definitely can't, with his pride, let himself be looking like a loser. He wouldn't allow that. But then they said eventually that in the first 10 days, The Life of Pablo was streamed 250 million times and that they had 3 million subscribers. That sounds great, but then people immediately accused them of fudging the numbers. If you do the math, that would have meant that each subscriber would have had to listen to the album 8 times a day, every day for those 10 days, which seemed a little unrealistic. Eventually, all of these albums I mentioned went live on other platforms, and when The Life of Pablo went live on other streaming services and Tidal reported the numbers, that's when Kanye was actually able to debut at number 1. Tidal also made some claims that year, like saying that Beyonce's Lemonade was streamed 306 million times in its first 15 days. These giant numbers prompted a Norwegian newspaper called Dagens Næringsliv, or just Today's Business in English, to investigate Tidal. One of the first things they alleged in their investigation was that Tidal was intentionally gradually resubscribing people. They had access to internal reports that showed the subscribers jumping up, but the streams were staying relatively the same. Today's Business claimed that despite Jay-Z saying they had 1 million people on Tidal in September of 2015, they only had 350,000 paying subscribers, according to these internal reports. Then, after the release of The Life of Pablo by Kanye, and them claiming that they had 3 million members in March of 2016, the internal reports said that they only had 1.2 million active accounts and 850,000 paying customers, which is not quite the 3 million subscribers that they boasted. The investigation alleged even shadier things, but basically they proved that Tidal was fudging the numbers. Jay-Z claimed and actually sued the previous owners of Tidal, saying that they were the ones who inflated the numbers before he bought it. Regardless of who did it, it happened. And the fake reports did not stop there. Like I said, they claimed that Beyonce's Lemonade was streamed 306 million times in the first 15 days. But Today's Business discovered that Tidal had faked the streams using other people's accounts. They found internal logs from Tidal, apparently from some hard drive, that showed people listening to the album 180 times in one day. The logs also showed that the songs were regularly playing at 6-minute intervals. They interviewed a bunch of these people who had apparently streamed it tons of times, and they all claimed that this never happened. They actually had a chart that showed some of the people with their real streams and their fake streams, which is just insane. This also happened with the Life of Pablo album, and they claimed it happened to 1.7 million Tidal users. Funnily enough, Tidal actually had to pay out this amount of streams to the record labels for like licensing deals. So basically they were paying these record labels way more than they were supposed to, just to appear as if they were doing better and to keep the business that they had. This would mean though that Tidal is paying out all of this money to Kanye and Beyonce's record labels at the cost of other artists who could have had that money instead. Like I said, Today's Business went so deep into this, a lot deeper than I'm going. Like there were some ex-Israeli intelligence officers and some large-scale coke dealers who were allegedly involved in running Tidal, and they all threatened to sue Today's Business for exposing their lies. Jay-Z even tried to argue against some of these rumors online about them overestimating streams.
You say, okay, we'll put it out for free. We're doing what Spotify does every day.
So they count free streams on Spotify.
100%. That's
not
a fact.
Just the premium. Gotcha.
That's a fact. That's a fact. In fact, they count it the same as a paid stream. That has to change, and that will change.
Yeah.
I'm sure of that.
So the only times Tidal's done it, I mean, I work for Tidal, full disclosure, obviously, but you're saying that these were unique situations where normally you don't put records in
We don't put
above
any
the
free,
paywall.
but if an artist says, I would like my album to go pre-paywall. We put it pre-paywall. It's the same thing as Tidal's, as Spotify's free tier. It's no different.
But none of them were able to prove that the company was not actually faking the stream numbers. Regardless, these reports blew up and destroyed all of Tidal's credibility. At first, Tidal was just scoffed at by the public, but when they were reporting that they had all these streams, people thought it might be a good idea, until they were exposed as faking it. The last expose article I mentioned was released in mid-2018. Following that, Tidal pretty much went under the radar. And honestly, aside from the lies, controversies, failed marketing, and higher price point, I think another thing that Tidal had problems with was just messed up UI, especially at launch. Like, they would display different versions of an album, like the Atmos or the Hi-Fi, as well as the explicit and clean, so it could look like this when you're searching for music. Before making this video, I had never personally used Tidal, but another YouTuber who covered this topic described their experience with Tidal's UI as a regular user.
I've actually been using Tidal since mid-2017, because it was the only service that had hi-fi quality, and at the time you could only stream Jay-Z's albums on Tidal. Back in 2017, the user interface for both the mobile app and the desktop app wasn't very good. Both apps were also really buggy, especially on the desktop. I remember sometimes I'd click on the song to play it, and instead of playing it would just load indefinitely, and you'd have to close down the app and open it again to get it to work. Literally the most basic thing you'd expect from a streaming app, playing songs, didn't always work. Back then, the desktop app looked more like something you'd see during the 2000s back in the Windows 7 days. But since those bad times, the service has improved a lot. Both the desktop app and the mobile app are a lot more intuitive than they once were, and feel a lot smoother to use in 2020.
So while Tidal may have improved their UI by 2020, it didn't really help that they were basically in a beta phase when launching in 2015. Tidal's launch was undoubtedly a huge dumpster fire, and the years that followed were full of controversies, falsely reported numbers, and even botted streams, which definitely did not help their case. But it isn't actually all bad. Despite Tidal considerably being a failure, especially with the botched launch and when you compare the streaming numbers to something like Spotify or Apple Music. For example, Spotify had 263 million paying subscribers in 2024, whereas Tidal is estimated to have somewhere between 250,000 to 750,000. Regardless of this, Tidal does have a very strong, tight-knit fan base who are ride or die Tidal users, and recently Tidal was bought by Square. Square, which is a finance company made by Jack Dorsey, the Twitter co-founder, bought Tidal for $297 million, which, if you remember, is a lot more than Jay-Z bought it for, the $56 million, so he made quite the profit. And I doubt he cares how well Tidal's doing when he just came away with like $200 million. Jack said he loved Jay-Z's vision and was excited to work on Tidal, and Jay-Z still is a shareholder and is involved in the program. Overall, Tidal has massively improved their UI and their platform. They also merged the payment plans into just one, so now it is $10 a month like any other streaming platform. And they still boast better audio quality than most streaming services, and of course they still do pay the artist more. While I've been making this video, I've decided to try out Tidal and actually see what all the fuss is about, because I have found out there are a lot of fans, and I'm not gonna lie, I really do notice that the audio quality is quite a bit better. Of course, this isn't an ad or anything, I'm just trying to give the platform a genuine chance, and I genuinely do think that it's a solid platform, and it's really cool that they pay out artists way more, so especially if you listen to smaller artists, this is a great platform for you. I just think if they hadn't botched the launch and had the poor marketing and the scams and the controversies and all that, I think it would have gone over a whole lot better. Just a quick update from Future Balls here. I've been using the free trial for a bit, like 2 weeks on Tidal, and I am enjoying the audio quality more. I did remember, however, that Apple Music also has lossless if you want to use that option. Overall, I still prefer Apple Music. I think Tidal has kind of a crappy UI. There is a way for you to move all your playlists over, which is cool, but I have run into the problem of some artists that I like not being on this platform, so really the only thing that stands out about Tidal is that they pay their artists more money, because you can get pretty much everything else on any other service. So while Tidal may have failed when you compare it to other services, as well as consider their data manipulation and other controversies, I do think it turned out to be a solid platform, and I do think if more people used it, it would really help the music industry become a better place. It's just that they were never actually able to get more people to use it and change the music industry like they had planned to. But hopefully Square and Jack Dorsey and everybody else can do something really cool that makes more people want to use this platform. Unlike Jay-Z though, Dr. Dre had a very successful run with his company Beats until again it was corporately consolidated. It seems like just yesterday every music video, movie, and celebrity celebrity was promoting Beats by Dre. I mean, to be honest, when I was a kid, there was nothing I wanted more than a new pair of Beats headphones. But nowadays, it's pretty hard to find someone wearing Beats, and it seems like the brand has almost vanished into thin air, which has left me with a few questions like, why was everyone and their mom wearing Beats? How come every single popular artist was wearing them? And whatever happened to the iconic brand Beats by Dre? Well, it turns out that Beats might not be the great headphones you remember them to be, and to understand why, we gotta go back to the beginning. Beats by Dre obviously were created by Dr. Dre, who is an extremely successful rapper and producer. He's well known for working with artists like Snoop Dogg, Eminem, 50 Cent, and more. As a producer, it gave him obviously a lot of credibility when it comes to audio quality, so it made perfect sense why people would be interested in buying his headphones. So he decided to partner up with the record executive Jimmy Iovine, who described Dr. Dre as a sound connoisseur, someone who had spent an entire career in the studio working with music and beats.
I said, Dre, we need to do something. Because he was going on about that 50 Cent was selling millions of sneakers. So I said, Dre, man, this is not us. Nobody cares what sneakers you wear. Screw sneakers. Let's do speakers. Let's get into sound, right? It's really how this company was built.
They said that there were two main problems with the audio and overall music industry, and they said it was because of poor audio because of pirated music, as well as Apple's earbuds having really poor quality. This is back when everyone was using the iPod and the headphones that just came with it. Remember when we used to get earbuds for free, the good old days? But he was saying that the younger generation also just had no clue about audio quality and what they were actually missing out on.
From 15 to 30, 25% knew the difference between a $100 speaker and a $1,000 speaker. They are just not even tuned into sound. And most of it is for two reasons. One of them is the laptop, and the other is the earbud. That Apple earbud that 8 million people get every quarter, that we all watch and salivate over, that he's making all that money, but the earbud that they stay with takes the emotion out of music.
And to be honest, there weren't too many headphone brands that were like killing the game back at this time.
Before the Sony Walkman debuted in 1979, headphones were mainly a utility used by the military and professional sound engineers. And that's pretty much where consumer headphone technology stayed, until October 23rd, 2001.
And we are introducing a product today called iPod. You can take your whole music library with you right in your pocket.
Now, to be fair, there were other MP3 players on the market at the time, but the $399 classic iPod and those white earbuds became a sort of status symbol.
So Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine's master plan was to create a high-quality pair of headphones that would allow listeners, especially the younger generation, to experience the music the way it was intended to be listened to. Or at least that's what their marketing campaign was. Originally, Beats partnered with an audio and video component company called Monster Cable, and with them they created the first ever pair of Beats headphones, the studio headphones, back in 2008. The headphones were focused on a bass-heavy sound and advertised as a studio-quality pair of headphones. Eventually, they came out with newer and better headphones, as well as the Beats Pill, which was a wireless speaker. I'm not sure if these speakers were ever nearly as popular as other speaker companies like JBL, but they were still pretty cool. And they also had these goofy little pill characters voiced by celebrities doing their ads.
They're small. Small? I'm 7.5 inches of heaven, mother. They're loud.
Yeah, we're speakers. We supposed to be loud, dummy.
And they love talking trash. A plug-in speaker? It's done. Yo, can I borrow your pager and your acid-wash jeans? Can I borrow your 8-ball jacket?
One of their biggest marketing moments was sending Beats to Olympic athletes. In 2008, they hooked LeBron up with a pair, who then asked for pairs for the entire Olympic basketball team. Then in 2012, in a bit more of a controversial moment, Beats sent headphones to British athletes and many more like Michael Phelps. Technically, you aren't really supposed to do this, and some people were upset because you know that they're trying to protect their sponsors, but Beats never really got into any official trouble. Regardless, Beats by Dre were selling like hotcakes. The market for headphones at this time spiked from 59 million units sold and $490 million in revenue at the end of 2008, which is the year that Beats by Dre launched, to 68.7 million units sold and a revenue of $648 million the following year. Beats by Dre really amplified the premium headphone market and kind of created a market that wasn't fully there. By 2013, Beats was valued at $1 billion. And if you weren't around back then, let me tell you, everybody was wearing Beats.
I've been to like 3 different continents in the last, I don't know, like 2 or 3 months, and like all I see is
Beats by Dre on ears, on planes in Vietnam and Jamaica and London, you know?
It's crazy.
Really...
We hit a lick, man. I'm shocked myself, man, as to how well they're doing.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep new and exciting product coming, man, you know, so we're trying to eventually be second to Apple, you know, and I don't think that's a bad position. We're really trying to take over everything with a speaker. You know what I'm saying? And also microphones. We're going to get involved in that also.
And probably the main driver behind that was their genius marketing. Back in the 2010s, every single big artist was promoting Beats headphones. One thing that they did was they had big artists put Beats in their music videos. Soulja Boy, Solange, Lady Gaga, Snoop Dogg, LMFAO, Britney Spears, Miley Cyrus, and many more all had Beats products in their music videos. Beats also collabed with a lot of other artists, athletes, and other celebrities in their advertisement. They even did this ad with Kendrick Lamar where they made a whole song for it that was never released, and it was just made for the commercial, and fans loved it.
I rap with a Pyrex and the projects. I'm cracking a pot. I'm a prospect. I'm a bite rat on a dock for the dope. I can dissect. It's a lie.
There's also this commercial that people love with Colin Kaepernick called Hear What You Want, where everyone was just trashing him for being a terrible quarterback, and then he puts the headphones on and just blocks it all out and locks in. And in the comments of all of these ads, people are ranting and raving about how much they used to love these commercials. They had every single celebrity and their moms doing these ads, which was extremely impactful, especially for the younger generation who looked up to these people, which was the main reason why it seemed like everyone wanted a pair of these headphones.
Hello? What up, Dre? Hold up, I gotta finish something. Talk to me.
On top of all that, the headphones just looked crisp, clean, and had a large array of colors that you could wear. Time magazine even said the company's greatest innovation may have been its success at making headphones as much fashion accessories as they are listening devices. And by 2014, Beats controlled 70% of the market for premium headphones. And while Beats was on top of the world and everybody's head, it didn't last forever. 2014 is when it seemed like things started to go a bit downhill for Beats. First, they did something a little bit dumb in my opinion, and that's when they started their own streaming service called Beats Music. This is when a lot of streaming services like Spotify and Apple Music were about to pick up steam, and the era of streaming was about to be ushered in. So I guess it was sort of smart to try to get into it early. Apparently, they even hired people in the music industry, radio personalities, and songwriters to curate the music. They also acquired a bunch of smaller companies to build their own up. But eventually, none of that would matter because just months later, Apple acquired Beats for $3 billion. There had been rumors about the deal for a little, and then right before the deal went live, a video was posted to Facebook by Tyrese Gibson of Dr. Dre ecstatic that he had just become the quote-unquote first billionaire in hip-hop.
Another level. Billionaire Boys Club for real, homie. Huh? Fix your face. Fix your face. Know that. Oh, shit. The Forbes list just changed. They need, hey, it came out like 2 weeks ago. They need to update the Forbes list. Shit just changed. In a big way. Oh, my. Understand that. Oh, my. The first billionaire in hip-hop. Right here from the motherfucking West Coast, believe me.
Not to ruin Dre's fun though, but I don't think his net worth actually ever technically hit $1 billion, although, you know, he's still got enough money. After Apple acquired Beats, Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine became workers at Apple. Apple laid off about 200 Beats employees, and immediately, just months after its creation, Beats Music was shut down because of the launch of Apple Music. So just like Agario, Apple ate up Beats by Dre. As years went on following the acquisition, it seemed like Beats by Dre faded away into obscurity. That paired with a couple of lawsuits, and it seemed like everything was just over for the brand. I will say though, one thing it seemed like Apple tried to adopt from Beats for a little bit was their advertising strategy. Many people like to blame Apple for the reason that Beats by Dre failed, but regardless of the Apple acquisition, I actually think one of the main reasons that Beats failed was simply because the headphones really weren't that great. I used to have a pair, and I'm not an audiophile or anything, but I remember them not being that comfortable. They felt very breakable, they didn't feel too high quality, and I just couldn't wear them for a while. They just weren't that great. I also found some audiophiles on Reddit, and if you don't know what an audiophile is, it's just a bunch of huge sound nerds. No offense to the audiophiles out there, but they know their stuff, which is is why most of them aren't fans of these headphones. When asked what happened to Beats on Reddit, one person said, "People realized the headphones suck." Another said, "They got huge because they had a marketing campaign based on loudness era shitty mastering practices in the recording industry. Instead of calling it out, they decided that they can fool people into thinking that headphones are at fault." Another person said, "The downfall in my opinion is when folks started to dissect Beats and found out it's no different or better than some Skull Candies or other similar products. They weren't that much better once you got your hands on some, and then you compared them to the lower priced options and you realize it's just a status symbol." Which was true. Beats were 100% a status symbol at the time, like the article I mentioned earlier that said they were just a fashion accessory to many people. The quality on these headphones compared to the other types of headphones on the market nowadays is just night and day. I may not have noticed it back then when I was like 12 years old, but the audio quality is quite different. So like I said, Beats continue to fade into obscurity. So quite simply, the main reason Beats didn't work is because their marketing campaign couldn't last forever and they didn't evolve as much as their competitors, which is largely thanks to Apple. Nowadays, we live in a time where everyone can look up reviews on headphones and find out that there are much better options for less money. On top of that, the other companies like Bose, Sony, and more started taking over the headphone game. And by the time that the AirPods came out in late 2016, Apple began their domination of the audio game. I don't know about you guys, but it feels to me that everyone switched to wireless earbuds thanks to Apple. Pretty much everyone I know had or has AirPods, and honestly, the word AirPods almost became synonymous with wireless earbuds. Except for that brief phase where everyone was wearing those like around the neck headphones that were wireless and they, you know what I'm saying? Like those were kind of weird. I never really liked those. I mean, think about it. Why would you spend like $300 on some bulky headphones when for like half the price you can get some convenient wireless earbuds that you can wear anywhere? And that's why by 2021, Apple had the majority of market share when it came to headphones. And if you fast forward to today, now it seems like everyone's buying Apple's headphones, the AirPod Maxes. And I'm not gonna lie, I fell for the propaganda too. I know they aren't that great quality wise and they're not like the best headphones on the market and they're a bit overpriced, but I just think these are sleek. I can't lie. Regardless, no one was really wearing over-ear headphones at this time, and if you were, there's a great chance that it wasn't Beats. Apple was all in on AirPods, and Beats were more so an afterthought at this time as, again, they were a subsidiary of Apple. Around this time, Beats did put out some wireless over-ear headphones, but there were just better brands at the time, and that's really why Beats fell off. But it seems as if Beats is trying to make a comeback. Right now, it seems like, despite going under the radar for a while, Beats is trying to make a comeback, and with Apple backing the company, I wouldn't be too surprised if it worked out. Lately, they've been going back to their roots, collaborating with pop culture people like Skepta, LeBron James, and Lil Wayne. They even partnered with Minecraft to make some sick-ass creeper headphones. On top of that, they have actually seen a decent amount of growth these last couple of years, and I think that's mostly due to sales from the Power Beats, which are unique in their own right. It seems though that they've changed up their target audience a bit from the younger generation, just like everybody in general, and more so to athletes, fitness people, and fans of hip-hop. I mean, if you go to their page, they got Shohei Ohtani wearing the headphones on the very front, so clearly they're going for more of an athletic crowd these days. When the current CEO was asked if he thought they were rebels against the Apple ecosystem, he made it seem like they were fine with targeting that audience, while Apple was left to dominate the rest of the mainstream headphone industry. He did admit that Beats by Dre fell off for a bit, but that they are going to revamp all of their products. Beats headphones have definitely improved to try to keep up with the current headphone technology, but they're definitely not the top dogs anymore. This was a recent interview from last year, so who knows, maybe Beats will make some killer headphones soon and get some more market share in the headphones industry. Regardless, Beats were still an iconic moment in pop culture that helped shift the audio market as we know it. Also, fun fact, Will.i.am from the Black Eyed Peas said he invested a lot in Beats early and made millions from being a shareholder.